Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast, a special early episode, as this week we'll be talking about LAIC, but we'll be talking about other things too. First up, our early impressions and thoughts on the new Surging Sparks expansion, now that we've had a chance to play a few games with some of the cards. We will talk about the results from the Buenos Aires special event that took place this past weekend down in Latin America ahead of LAIC. We will, of course, have Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment of the podcast. And then this week's episode is going to be all about LAIC. We're going to be tier listing the format, giving our opinions on all of the decks, which cards, which techs that we like or don't like heading into this weekend. And then also to placing all of those decks along a tier list so we can rank each of them how we see fit. We'll see if we can agree on where everything should go this time. My name is Chip Ritchie, and I'm joined here, as always, by my friend and co-host, Azul GG. Azul, how's it going, buddy? How's your week been? I guess it's only been a few days since we last recorded because we're
Yeah,
releasing early here. We released late last week. But how have the last few days been for you, buddy?
they've been good. Played a little Surging Sparks. I did restream day one of the Buenos Aires special event. Shout out to Otavia's dad for putting the stream on over there. So the community stepping up in a situation where there's no official stream from the tournament organizer or anything. I'm sure they had to get the okay from the tournament organizers. So shout out to the tournament organizers as well for allowing it. Something that wasn't allowed for the regionals. Um, that was run by Copag. So I don't know if Copag is like stopping because like the last season they were streamed at all the Copag events. So, but I had heard that someone had volunteered to run the stream for that event, and they were told no. So it's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, shout out to um the community kind of stepping up and like someone coming forward and like offering to just they had no commentary or anything. It was just a stream. Like I said, I restreamed it day one. I didn't restream day two. Today, I actually felt I was like pretty not under the weather, but I was just kind of burnt out, I guess. Um,
You
from
just need a
the
day every once in a while, you know?
yeah, then this was that day, and it felt kind of bad because there's like a lot of decks I want to still play out and try out in the Surging Sparks form. There's a lot of stuff I haven't played with yet, so definitely a lot to catch up going into this week before LAIC. But actually, it was pretty funny. I had heard about this a little while ago. I don't know if you weren't like an someone who was into like MLG growing up at all, were you, Chip?
No, no, not
There was
really.
a throwback Halo 2 event over this weekend, so that was cool that I got to watch that today. I was kinda nostalgic watching players like have you ever heard the name Walshy before?
I
Is
don't
that
think so. You
no?
mean
Yeah,
Wolfie?
so
Wolfie
no.
VGC?
No, Walshy. So anyone who was like an MLG kid growing up, I remember some of my fondest memories are like watching MLG events, Halo 3 with like, my brothers and stuff. So yeah, that was pretty sick. Got to watch a couple old names playing Halo 2. So I got to I at least got to catch that today, which was cool. But a little bit behind on my Surging Sparks gameplay. But overall, pretty good weekend. And definitely want to give the shout out to Tavio's dad for putting on that stream, stepping up. It's always good to see the community step up with like all these little things. You know, Alex Wilson is a name we always shout out. And then even coming to these like major tournaments, there's no official stream, but the community stepping up and putting something on is always really, really cool. What about
Yeah.
you, Chip? How was your week? How was your last few days since we last talked?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, this weekend we spent some time, putting up the fall stuff and taking down and like starting to set up some Christmas decorations and stuff like that. Got the Christmas tree set up in the house. Brooke is like she loves Christmas. It's her favorite time of year, her favorite holiday, and so she's, like, so excited to get the Christmas tree down and set it up. As soon as November 1st came around, she's pumping Christmas music through the house, like, it just makes her so happy.
Dude, it is you guys are like a Walgreens or there something like over there. Immediately, like at supermarkets, November 1st, all the Halloween stuff is gone and the Christmas stuff comes out.
Dude, the Christmas stuff
Uh,
has been out in the supermarkets for, like, over a month at this
that
point.
is true. It has been. I was at the grocery store before Halloween, helping Lorelai get some pumpkins because she did something on her stream with carving some pumpkins. And so we're in like that holiday section, and there was
Yeah.
Christmas stuff already out there. It is. I feel like it's getting earlier then, because like I feel like yeah, it feels like it's getting earlier each year. I don't know.
I think November 1st is the, like, earliest acceptable day to start getting ready. Like, we haven't, like, put up our we don't really do anything crazy, like, outside decorations wise. We put up, like, some
Yeah.
wreaths and stuff like that, some lights on the steps, so that's about it. I haven't done any of that yet. We'll wait until after Thanksgiving probably for that. We still have, like, our outdoor fall decor out, but, like, inside, she's, like, ready to flip the house, man, ready to
It
ready to get
does.
into the holiday spirit.
It has been a while since I've actually personally felt that kind of lack in my current living situation where I'm at, because I mean, no one in my house is doing any kind of decorating, but it does add like a cozy element. There's the tree set up, you have some ornaments or something. I don't know, everything about it. It does bring a vibe to the living room or the living space in general that is very like cozy and welcoming. So I've like last year, I had thought about setting up a tree and all that kind of stuff, and I might do it this year. We'll see. There's not a lot of room in the living room right now, but we're cleaning it up, so maybe I'll actually go out of my way to do some decorating of my own this year. 'Cause it definitely adds a very, yeah, cozy vibe to the living room, to the living
You
space.
could at least get, like, a mini tree and set up,
Yeah.
like, some Christmas lights or something behind your setup for, like, your stream and stuff. That would be, like, a
Yeah, I
small thing you
could.
could do. Like, you could get some, like, pretty cheap string lights and just run them on the shelves.
Yeah, bring the vibes to the stream. That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
I definitely
Do you
could.
still have all your better TTV emotes in Twitch chat set up as the Christmas ones? I remember, like, a few years ago, you set them up as the Christmas ones for the holidays and then just never changed them.
I think some of them still currently are. I've passed on my emote management over to Deloc. Shout out to Deloc. So whenever Deloc is around in my stream, he's the one who manages all my emotes. So I don't know where we're at right now with the Christmas or non-Christmas emotes. We might be a little bit in between on some of them, but I
Well, it
think
might
most
be
of them
that
are
time of year to
still.
switch them back over, you know?
Yeah, if they're not, I'm sure they'll make their way back over to the. I think we just keep them year round though. I can't I know I see the emotes in chat. But I can't picture in my head right now if they have like Santa hats and stuff or not. I don't remember. The ones,
Uh
I mean, the emotes that have been being spammed in my chat recently are not Christmas, like the Pepe Christmas ones either. It's just like,
What's the go-to emote in your chat most recently?
they're just so silly. I don't know, like the I can't one or caught. Yeah, I mean, it's funny for like the moment for sure. The emotes are just so dumb. It's like they're funny though. It is funny. It is funny. Shout out to chat.
Shout outs to chat. Also, shout outs to our listeners because we did recently just pass 10,000 subscribers here on the podcast YouTube channel. So we appreciate that support, reaching a milestone. So, yeah, very much appreciate it. We also put out a new video this week on the second channel. So if you have missed that, be sure to check it out. The Uncommon Energy channel where we post tabletop content, myself and Azul. And yeah, we put out a new evolution series. The video's doing really well. It seems like people are enjoying it. It was our longest one yet, but it's still doing the best of any of them that we've ever put out up to this point. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm sure Azul is too.
I definitely have to get the more content out over there. It's something we're still trying to be as consistent as possible about. So it's nice to get out
Shout outs to our
the next
editor Pig
episode.
because I think he put in a ton of work into this one and it took quite a while to get it sorted out. So shout outs to him for getting it done. People were singing his praises in the comments for sure because the editing is peak without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Big shout out to Pig, definitely. And yeah, I'm still like I always I say this all the time we bring it up, but I'm super excited just for everything we're gonna be doing over on the secondary channel. So make sure y'all go check it out if you haven't already. It's just was it uncommon underscore energy?
No, it's just the YouTube handle. It's in the video description.
Descriptions. Yeah, check
Yeah,
it
it
out.
might be. I think it is uncommon underscore energy because like the other one wasn't available.
Yeah, most people have checked it out, I'm sure, at this point. It is
Yeah.
bigger than our
It is
podcast
bigger
channel by
than this
far.
channel, yeah. It's
Yeah,
pretty wild. Yeah, uncommon youtube.com/at uncommon underscore energy if you wanna find it.
there it is. All right. Well, we've got some big tournaments coming up. We've got a big tournament coming up, but yeah, the new set has dropped, and it won't be legal for LAIC, but it has been out for a week, or not a week, less than a week at this point, a couple days,
Yeah.
and limitless tournaments are already implementing it. I've already been playing a little bit on BTCG Live, so that's what we're gonna jump into first here.
Yeah, just gonna talk a little bit about some of the things that we've played, the things that we've gotten excited about, what it kinda looks like is happening in the tournament scene, as far as the tournament scene goes, it's really not too big of a difference. It definitely seems like Miraidon is much more of a deck, right? Going from basically nothing to something. You see some Ledge popping up in some of these online tournaments. We've seen some Hydreigon popping up in some of these online tournaments. I guess start off, Azul. Tell us what you personally have played on your stream so far and what you've liked, or what you
Yeah.
have liked, and maybe like what was not as good as you were hoping it was going to be.
So I played, man. So Miraidon definitely got better, but I don't think anyone was questioning that.
Yeah,
The question is just like how good is it still going to be in the meta? Just because the deck gets better, very obviously better, not questionably better. Because I think you could look at something like Golden Go and like, all right, how much better did Golden Go actually get with Energy Surge Pro? But like with Miraidon, with the Magneton, now you can reintroduce Raichu V. Playing the Magneton, you get to play Counter Catcher now and actually be able to consistently get value out of it. The Latias EX is a big deal. So like Miraidon got better for sure. But it does feel like I think it'll be a contender in the meta. I think it'll be a meta deck where it's kind of fell out of that for a little while. And it was interesting, like last format, or not last format, but last season, Miraidon was like sneakily always a meta deck, but it had to be like rediscovered like 3 or 4 times
yeah.
throughout the season. It's definitely hasn't been the same case for Miraidon at the beginning of this season so far. I think it definitely has consistently been not a meta deck, very much a fringe meta deck. One of them did get top 8 just recently at the special event that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think it is going to be a meta deck moving forward because it's just the options are just so powerful through the Magneton and the now reintroduction of Raichu because you have that much more energy acceleration through the Magneton now. So I expect it to be sticking around. But besides that, Hydreigon is really good. It's really powerful. I don't want to say really good. It's really powerful. I'm not sure how I quite feel about it overall as far as a competitive deck, but if you can get the card to like flow reasonably, then it's definitely going to be a contender because both attacks are just like pretty devastating in a lot of situations. So I'm pretty hype on Hydreigon, but I haven't quite figured out how I feel like is like the best way to play it yet.
Yeah, the Hydreigon EX, for anyone who's listening and doesn't hasn't fully gotten to all the cards yet. 2 attacks here. The first one for a dark and a colorless, 200 damage. Discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. So 1, that's a lot of damage for 2 energy, and 2, that's a really good second effect to like, you know, rid your opponent of potential resources. And then Obsidian is kind of the big attack here. 130 damage for a psychic, dark, metal, and colorless, and then 130 base damage, and then also 130 damage to 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon. It's got 330 HP. So if you set up a Hydreigon EX, there's really not a lot that's going to take it down. You're probably going to be able to get off 2 Obsidians from 1 Hydreigon EX.
Yeah, possibly, or a couple crashing heads. And the way I played it most recently was like Obsidian. I had the Neo Upper Energy in there, but it was like you trying to use Obsidian as like a closer.
Yeah.
Or if you can get it off like turn 2, turn 3, and they don't KO it. The thing is, like, you can commit a lot to the potential of Obsidian, but if you just Obsidian twice, you just win. So, like, if you don't commit a lot to it and you just get to it, then you've just kind of won the game and you don't need to commit too much to it because like counter game plus dark flash plus neo upper energy just is an obsidian. But we see looking at this list right here, it has like the crispin in there, so it has like a little bit more energy acceleration. So the potential of double obsidian there is available like through 2 hydrogons, not just 1 hydrogon using it twice. So
Yeah, pair of counter energy or counter gain, I should say, as well.
yeah, and another thing with the potential of the obsidian, I could see something like the brace being the best tool card to play in Hydreigon. So if you go up against a matchup like Raging Bolt, you can like guarantee, as long as they're not playing Vacuum, that your Hydreigon survives to Obsidian back-to-back turns. Now you don't have Neo Upper Energy, which is a big part of getting to Obsidian. That's definitely the fastest way to get to an Obsidian, and most consistent
Mhm.
way is through that. But would be something there. And then Sarah Ledge, actually looking at, wait, was this the most popular deck in this tournament, or is this?
This is just in the format thus far.
Oh
So
my
we are
god,
just a few days
yeah,
into the format, but Ledge has been these first few days the most popular deck. And I think it's probably because of the new decks. It is like the most easily approachable, probably, right? Pretty
yeah,
straightforward what you're trying to do turn after turn, game after game, matchup after matchup, right?
time after
Um,
time.
time after time. Here, it just keep it rolling. And yeah, I mean, this is one ever since it got revealed in Japan. It came out in like a theme deck in Japan. It's kind of been on the radar as something that has potential at a minimum.
Whoever got that song reference, let me know in the comment section down below. I don't actually remember the name of the song, but I know the the lyrics. Yeah, Sarah Ledge. From what I played with it, It's iffy, man. I'm not sure. It's nothing special, right? If a way I've been putting a lot of these it's a 2-prize Pokemon that one hit KOs your opponent's active Pokemon. We got a lot of them. Some of them got some buffs, like Golden Go. We still have Raging Bolts. It didn't go anywhere. But there's a little bit more depth to Sarah Ledge. It kind of feels more like a what's the deck I would like compare it to? Big 2-prize Pokemon, one KOs your opponent's active Pokemon. It's kind of more like a Golden Go, where it's like Golden Go has the possibility to use Radiant Greninja. We see this build of Sarah Ledge right in front of us here has the Palkia V-Star plus Greninja, kind of like what Golden Go has played. So it has that kind of flexibility. And then if you do play, this list doesn't play the Brilliant Mixer, it plays the Legacy Energy, which offers its own powerful options. But if you play like the Brilliant Mixer, you can actually get up to like a turn 1 or a turn 2, turn 3 one hit KO on like Charizard EXs pretty reasonably if you can find your Brilliant Mixer.
The question I always ask with these like 2-prize one hit KO decks is pretty much like, is this better than Raging Bolt? Like Raging Bolt is the bar for these decks, right? It's the best of
Yeah.
the 2-prize beat stick, super aggressive, high damage output decks. So can it do something differently or more consistent than Raging Bolt? And I would say like the benefit to Sarah Ledge over Raging Bolt is that as the game, you maybe need a little bit more early than Raging Bolt does, but you need less as the game goes on, because as the game goes on, your attack is just going to get stronger and stronger as you get more energy cards into the discard pile.
Yeah, it can. Sarah Ledge feels a little bit awkward towards the late game, to be honest, because you don't really like play something like B Barrel or something to have like on board. You do have Pheasantipity, of course, but that becomes like the main target for your opponent in like the earlier turns of the game. And we see like this build, like something that you could like compare it to Golden Go. It's like, why would you play Golden Go over Raging Bolt? Well, you can pretty reasonably open with a 1-prize Pokemon and put that in your active. Sarah Ledge can do the same. And then one of the strengths of Golden Go, or one of the things that kind of people turned into a strength of Golden Go, was playing the Radiant Greninja Palkia V-Star package in there. Because you don't really care what energy types you play, and you can play a ton of water energy and still play a decent amount of metal energy. Same thing with Sarah Ledge, you can play a ton of fire energy and a ton of water energy. And you see this list has that Palkia plus Radiant Greninja combo in the deck. So you can have the pressure, the threat of the Moonlight Shuriken. And this list even has a canceling cologne in it as well to really try and take advantage of the Moonlight Shuriken, like Golden Go has in the past. So it feels pretty similar. Like if you're looking at the Palkia build, it feels pretty similar to Golden Go. But one big card that Golden Go can't take advantage of that you can is Briar. And this deck has been the deck that I played with that takes advantage of Briar the best out of any deck that I played Briar in since Briar's release. Like so many games have come up where I'm like, oh, I can play towards a Briar win condition, or Briar is my only win condition at this point. I haven't quite cracked like the awkward part about Sarah Ledge for me so far has just been the end game, getting that last Sarah Ledge set up, or getting the last boss's orders, or getting the last Briar to like close out games. But I've like added in like Mew EX for just like extra draw support in the late game, stuff like that. Is start to smooth out. Like double Palpad is what I've been playing as well. I've tried the RegiDrago as we see in this build here. I tried the Banette as well, just for like late game recovery. Is like, what is the purpose of all these things? The double Palpad does feel the best overall so far. And then the other thing I would mention is I like the Brilliant Mixer, because without Brilliant Mixer, it's really hard to KO something like a Charizard on like turn 2, turn 3. And that's where you can start to fall behind. Now, it is hard to find a Brilliant Mixer on turn 2 or turn 3, but between Pokestop, potential turn 1 Carmine, and Squawkabilly plus Radiant Greninja, you go through your deck pretty fast.
Yeah.
So you have a decent chance of finding it.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely a lot of potential with Sarah Ledge because, and it's like, because similarly to Golden Go, it doesn't matter what energy types are in your discard pile. It just matters that you get energy in your discard pile. There are so many different ways you could possibly go about this. It's just kind of a question of someone finding the best potential behind the card. I mean, and we see all of these lists are pretty different. Like this list is just straight Sarah Ledge. There's nothing else going on. They do have the blender here for Jet Energy as well. Yeah, it's
4 Carmine, 3 Research, just all out.
yeah, just gassing through the deck.
Yeah, the one thing I would definitely say I think is for sure worth playing is Briar. Like I said, like Briar is like the one card that it's like, well, if I'm playing Briar in other decks, I'm playing it in this deck because it's just it comes up so much more often where I wish I had Briar. Which does make me wish I have a lot of situations as well that have come with this deck so far where it's like my win condition is Countercatcher Briar, and I've had to discard my Countercatcher early. So those are like the situations where it's like, do I wish I played Prime Catcher instead of Brilliant Blender? Sometimes, or maybe just more counter catchers is the answer as well. And that's where like the power of like playing the Drago can come in, because if you play the Drago, you kind of are forced to play Prime Catcher because of the Drago's retreat cost or like a switch or something.
Mm-hmm.
Then being able to like late game Drago V Star to get back Prime Catcher Briar just to win the game is like pretty nice. That's like where the power of that potentially playing that comes in.
Yeah, so this is one that definitely has a lot of potential. It looks like RegiDrago is still pretty popular right now in the format. There's also been some Lost Zone box. And I think Lost Box, I don't know, I'm kind of just randomly clicking on lists here, but it definitely feels like Lost Box is probably the best place to potentially use Pikachu EX. I don't know if I'm going to find a list here. Yeah, this list right here has
Okay.
it. They got first place in the tournaments.
I think it might be for sure, because besides Miraidon, but Miraidon's not attacking with it, right? If we're trying to attack with it, Lost Zone might be the best home for it. I still don't know how good it is, and it's not too hard to counter Pikachu EX. I think canceling Cologne would be like the #1 counter if people are going to try and counter it. But
Yeah, but then it becomes a thing like it's so like for Sacramento coming up, because I know that's going to be just
yeah,
in a couple weeks here that people are kind of thinking about and preparing for. I would imagine nobody is going to respect or prepare for Pikachu EX. Like if there's
yeah,
a chance for a Pikachu EX deck to succeed and do really well, it'll be as early as possible into the format because it's like unproven ground, right? So if you've got a Pikachu EX deck, like Sacramento is definitely the time to try to play it. And like because I don't think it doesn't feel like a card that, while it is like one of the poster child cards of the set, right, it is like the main front runner of the set. um and I think people recognize the potential that it has. It's not something that has the hype behind it that it would warrant people to tech for it, that it would warrant people to go out of their way to play a canceling clone in a deck that wouldn't otherwise play it. Now you may run into a problem if decks just naturally already play counter cards, which is kind of a thing that exists, right? RegiDrago usually still has a canceling cologne in it. Um,
yeah,
we've got things like if Raging Bolts are playing Slitherwing, right? Slitherwing burns your active. That gets around the Pikachu's ability as well after hitting it for weakness. So there are good decks in the format that just kind of already have ways to get around the powerful Resolute Heart ability of Pikachu EX. So that is, I guess, one of the big question marks as well.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, I guess I kind of agree with you. Also, it also has to just be like good.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
you just playing Pikachu X and play Pikachu X because it'll be like maybe one of the best times to play a new card doesn't make it good at the end of the day as well. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's
pretty up
better.
in the air on Pikachu. I haven't played any Pikachu yet besides putting it in Miraidon. So Lost Zone is definitely the way that intrigues me the most. So I'm definitely gonna be trying that out. Definitely pretty curious to give that a shot. But definitely yeah. Like I think there will be a lot of potential for cards like Pikachu and even like Sarah Ledge if there is like certain ways to kind of counter it, or Chaladon, which is another deck that it doesn't look like popped up much in these online tournaments so far. Um, that like some of the best times to play these cards will be uh, on release. To be honest, on that first week in Sacramento, I think for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like yeah, I could like this is probably there are a lot of cards here in this set. You talked about this a few weeks ago, how you just like want a set to come out and it like there is a new tier one deck. We haven't had that in a few sets, right?
Yeah,
Where a new set comes out and there's a new tier one deck. Um there are lots of cards that seem like they have potential.
definitely.
Archaladon, Hydreigon, Ceruledge, Pikachu EX, but they're just not obvious tier one contenders. So if someone's got something cooked up, no one is going to be respecting whatever your homebrew is. Like this is the time to give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think anyone's overly going out of their way to respect Pikachu or respect Ceruledge or respect our Chaladon because none of them have really like established themselves as a new tier 1 contender or tier 1 deck. So no one really wants to go out of their way to tech one way or another for any of these decks going into Sacramento. They just want to kind of play. Most people are just going to be focused on trying to play like the most neutrally broken way to play their deck, the most powerful way
Yeah.
to play whatever deck they're going to play. So unless something gets a lot of hype going into the tournament, then of course we can see that change. But it's kind of split, to be honest. Like the focus of the Pokemon TCG is kind of split right now, right? There's a bigger tournament literally the week before Sacramento. Like if you had to pick a tournament to prep for, you're prepping for LAIC, right?
Yeah.
Which is in a different format. And there's a lot of competitive players going there. Of course, it is out of region for Sacramento, so the majority of players at Sacramento will not be going to LAIC. But like those players are some of the best players in the game, right? So they're like the people who are going to LAIC are some of the best players in the game. So what they decide to come up with will be more impactful overall on average, like for any format or meta.
I definitely think at Sacramento, the opening is huge for someone to like burst through and make a name for themselves because, like you just said, the best players are
Yeah.
focused on LAIC. They're not prepping and testing with the new cards. I would imagine a lot of players who go to LAIC and play something like RegiDrago or Raging Bolt or Lugia will go the next weekend to Sacramento and play RegiDrago or Raging Bolt or Lugia, right? They'll probably stick with whatever was good in the last format because there's nothing that is obviously like insanely good going into the new format that would give them cause for much concern to differentiate from what they've been playing.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. Also, I guess like possibly a lot of players over these last couple of major tournaments have played the exact same deck, sometimes the exact same 60. Maybe they're just content running it back at LAIC. Maybe this format is kind of drained of any like potential innovation. Like the innovation pool has run dry, and maybe more people are focused on Sacramento instead because they're like, well, I could spend another 100 games in the LAIC format to maybe change one card to my RegiDrago deck, or I could start prepping some new cool archetype for Sacramento. If they already think their returns are kind of like maximized for their potential at LAIC, maybe they have moved on to the Surging Sparks format. And some people are probably doing both as well. Some people are probably dual wielding formats right now heading into LAIC, trying to maximize as much as possible for both tournaments if they're going to both.
Yeah, I totally expect to walk through the tables during day 2 at LAIC and see people playing like the new format. Like without a doubt, that will be happening.
That does
People
happen a lot,
testing.
doesn't it? I feel like at the
Yeah,
end of like major tournaments, there's people already playing with the next set or whatever, getting ready.
they're ready to
Um,
go.
yeah, people just like playing Pokemon.
So there was a major tournament this weekend down in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and a lot of international players headed down to this event. And actually, if we look at the top 8 here on Limitless, we are recording this Sunday night since we're releasing this episode early. So all of the deck list information has not quite been added to Limitless just yet. In fact, only one has been added. But we see plenty of players from Brazil, Peru, Chile, right? But then we also see Austria and Australia and United States all being represented in this top 8 at a special event. People traveling, 280 players, but there are people traveled from all over to compete in this thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's cool to see the international competition continuing. And uh, what I was gonna say, I think a couple players are probably staying down there, because they're maybe even making their way to Sao Paulo for LAIC after playing in Buenos Aires. Because it feels, yeah, if you're going down there from like America or Canada specifically, I doubt Tim Franklin is going back to Australia. He's probably making his way over to LAIC, and
Yeah.
I don't know if he planned to play it. I assume if he's going to Buenos Aires, he's going to LAIC. So yeah, a lot of these players are probably making a 2 event trip out of this trip to Buenos Aires. But it's cool to just see like more international competition. I think it's just like a super sick thing to see, continue to see grow more and more in the Pokemon TCG. I was gonna say I do have the meta percentages for the decks.
Oh yeah, I saw
Um,
that. It's in our
yeah, so Raging Bolt was 17% of the meta, so still the number one deck. Lugia, despite Lugia did not get another top 8 showing. I'm actually kind of surprised. Where are the Lugias at? Lugia was 11%. We had RegiDrago at 8%, Palkia at 7%, Terapagos at 7, Dragapult at 7, Charizard at 7, and then Gardevoir at 6. So that's the top 7 decks there. Um, and then there was only 22 players in day 2.
Yep.
Um,
Let's see if
so the
I can pull it up on, was it on Poke Data?
maybe, yeah,
Okay, I'll pull it up. Yeah, yeah, it is. I'll pull it up.
that sounds about right. Yeah, only 22 players in day 2 overall, so definitely a smaller event. Um, and I believe the cutoff for cut was X12. I want to say I'm actually not sure what it ended up being.
Yeah, looks like that is correct. X12 after Uh, X21, you mean? Yeah, X21.
Was it X21? Okay,
Yeah.
X21, X21, X21.
And it was
Oh, wait, what's
11
that?
players in top cuts.
Oh, they did have
Top 16
asymmetrical
cut.
cut. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't actually realize what cut ended up looking like. All right, cool. Yeah. So once again, another event where all the X2s made cut, which is like the big thing that I am just wanting to continue to see. And I think I actually just ran the numbers before we started the show. I think LAIC will be safe for X2s as well, or it should be. We'll see.
Yeah, this was an event where there was a lot higher tie rate than what we've seen through most of the rest
Yeah.
of the year. It was a 16% tie rate, which is much more typical of what things were last year. That's like kind of a more normal tournament. Um, and it's probably because it was like a smaller tournament, a smaller day two. People knew that like with some ties, you were going to be okay to like get into cut.
Yeah, if
Like
you ran a
X1
simulator,
2 and then X21 making it in.
yeah, I ran a simulator before the tournament with a 13% tie rate, which I think was about the average going into the tournament, or maybe the high end, a little bit above average. And
Well, most of our tournaments we've been
one,
seeing like 10% tie rate or less.
oh no, I don't think anything's been under 10. I think it's been like 10 to 13, maybe
It's
14 at the last one.
I could be
Like,
tripping, I guess, but okay,
yeah, I don't think we've
13
had anything
Louisville.
under. We haven't had anything under 10. I don't think. It might be the lowest. Maybe 11 is actually the lowest. We may not have even had one at 10.
Louisville was 10.
Okay, yeah. Um, but yeah, I ran a simulator before the tournament at 13% tie rate, and X21 was cut. So, and that's what I think. That's how I'm going to base off whether or not I'm aggressive or not with my IDs. Will be like take the average tie rate at major tournaments, and then put that into limitless with the number of players in the tournament. And if it says a tie makes cut, then won't make gentlemen's agreements until I have one tie, and then once I have one tie, I'll make gentlemen's agreements after that. Or if it says ties don't make cut at all, and you have to go X2 or better, then I'll like aggressively like make gentlemen's agreements as soon as like round one. Although I feel like that's kind of like the sentiment that people were going into the season with, and that's why for the first couple events at the beginning of the season were people were probably more aggressively making gentlemen's agreements, right? And now we've seen as the season's gone on, and then people probably got, there was the whole Louisville incident where X2s didn't make cut. I think people uh maybe a little bit scared about doing it now. And I don't think there's that many people out there who are running like simulators on the limitless Swiss calculator, whatever, to like check ahead of time. And there's like, well, sometimes ties make cut, sometimes they don't. So I guess I may as well, if a tie is going to happen, I guess there's no reason to make gentlemen's agreements anymore. So I don't think people are going as far out of the way as I will be at Sacramento personally. But I feel like people just kind of felt like, oh, you have to go X2 or better. So of course you make gentlemen's agreements. And then Louisville happened, and now like no one knows what to do anymore. And we're kind of like reverting back to where we were last season, where people are kind of just playing Pokemon. If a tie happens, it feels like.
Yeah. So let's look at the decks used here. We do see that the event was won by Jeremy Gomilla from the US using a deck that I think, both kind of were a little down on this
Yeah.
last week. The Origin form Palkia V-Star Dusknoir.
Yeah. So adapted to the meta a little bit with the two loss vacuum. And definitely it's like there's a little bit of a change up from like lists we had seen previously. I think the list that comes to mind most recently was Stefan's list. Stefan also did rock the double vacuum, but like the Irida count is a little bit different. Only one Irida. The supporters seem to be getting less and less with this deck. So yeah, only one Irida in here from Jeremy. I wonder at some point maybe it's just better to play like 4 Iono and a Palpad. I wonder
Yeah.
if that ever gets to the point where that's actually just the way to go about it. But yeah, obviously you kind of need to play the double vacuum to keep up with the Bravery Charms in Raging Bolt right now. Um, so it has those in theirs for that. I'm still not super hype on Palkia Dusknoir, but it is like a good deck, right? It is definitely a solid deck, and did hit a I would say favorable matchup in the finals in the Terapagos deck. I think you definitely have the advantage. If you go first in that matchup, it's hard to lose. And if you go second, Terapagos doesn't always get off to the most aggressive turn twos. So you're still able to kind of get off a really powerful Moonlight Shuriken play and kind of take over the game, even when you go second in the matchup. So I think it's definitely a favorable one for Palkia. And Terapagos is definitely a deck that we have seen, I feel like, make a little bit of a resurgence. It had like that initial surge after initially released, and then it kind of wasn't super successful and kind of went under the radar for a little bit and started to kind of make its comeback recently when Tord got top or second place last weekend or 2 weekends ago now. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then we saw it too once again here in Buenos Aires, and it's been doing decent in the Latin American tournaments pretty consistently because one of the main reasons is Giovanni, who has made it to the last or to every finals so far of every Latin American major so far with Terrapagos. Second, first, second so far at the events in Latin America. We've had three, made it to the finals 3 times. That's pretty impressive.
Extremely impressive, without a doubt. Yeah, for those who don't know, Giovanni is a first-year master. We see he had a top 8 finish at London EUIC last season, so this is his first year, and when it sorry, as a senior, as noted here on Limitless, and yeah, so this is his first year as a master. What a start! As good of a start as anyone has ever had in the history of the game to a
It's got to be the
freshman.
best.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, this is basically just like, I mean, yeah, we don't like talk about this. It's like a little bit weird to say it in like the book, but like rookie of the year, like how can anyone beat Giovanni at this point? It's not.
Already.
This might be the best start to a season ever for a senior player. If anyone knows of any more historic um, uh, starts to a
Yeah.
season from a year one senior, let us know in the
Radner
comments
had a really
section.
good start his first year, right?
Yeah, Bradner
He
had
had,
an
like,
okay start.
2 top 8s, I think, back to back, but then COVID killed his first season, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cut it short. Yeah, definitely excited to see, and like we have, I'm sure Giovanni's going to LAIC, so I would be it'd be really exciting for his storyline for him to continue that and at least pull out a top 8 at LAIC, but making it to like another
Yeah.
finals would be crazy. And we don't have Giovanni's deck list here, but based on his past 2 tournaments that he's played in, I'm gonna go ahead and guess it's pretty similar to the same Terrapagos Dusknoir build. The question is, did he forget the Briar this time? Did he make the same decklist error that he made at the last one, or was Briar in the list? Or maybe has he adapted to like the Bouffalons possibly? I didn't watch the stream, all the finals of the stream. I didn't see the Bouffalons ever come out, so my assumption is he does not play the Bouffalons still. But that's something we had seen. I've been seeing more people play is the Bouffalons since towards
Yeah.
finals.
And someone who did play the Bouffalons, someone who got top 8 at this tournament is Tim Franklin from Australia. And he also had an interesting take here with the RegiDrago V-Star. It's not the first time we've seen it pop up,
Yep.
but definitely the best we've seen it do thus far. The 1/1 RegiDrago V-Star line in Terrapagos.
Yeah, I saw it first in the Champions League that happened at the beginning of this format. Now their list was wide. They had trumpets and grass energy and fire energy, and they had the Drago in there. And then I think Robin Schultz played it most recently at Lille. But then we see, yeah, the most success we've definitely seen from it so far, the Drago in this deck from Tim here. And besides that, it is kind of like a standard Terrapagos deck, right? Like this is probably pretty similar to like what Tord played 2 weekends ago, except there's a 1/1 Drago in here for like that extra resource reach in the mid or late game to close out games more aggressively or get super far ahead with big combo plays, recovering stuff like Prime Catcher or Dusknoir pieces. Like you could do anything with it, right? It does so much for you. Definitely probably most geared towards like winning the game at the end of the game. I would say more than anything, you're trying to like leave it on the bench and just be like, well, if you don't KO my active Terrapagos, I probably win. If you do KO my active Terrapagos, I have Legacy Star to work with. So like, how can you win at this point? The answer is you can't. You set up like checkmate board states probably pretty aggressively with that Legacy Star.
Yeah, definitely a cool thing to see. We don't have any other lists here. I don't think I was able to
Not that
find
I'm
any of
aware of.
these on Twitter. But we see a Lost Box top 4 from Fabrizio Inga Silva, obviously a very good player from Peru. We've got Isaac Salazar with the top 4 with Raging Bull Ogrepon. And then perhaps the most surprising thing to see here is there's a top 8 finish from Justin Hoy here with Miraidon, a deck we have not seen very much from in this format. So I'd be very curious to know what this Miraidon build looks like. I would have to imagine Area Zero most likely is the way that it's being played right now with
Yeah.
Raikou V. But yeah, interesting to see ahead of the release or the legality, I should say, of Pikachu EX.
Yeah, it definitely gets more powerful moving forwards, but yeah, probably a vacuum in there as well, I would imagine, to help deal with those bravery charms of Raging Ball. Miraidon already felt like a very okay deck in the format before every Raging Ball player started playing for Bravery Charm. Now that everyone has 4 Bravery Charm in there, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely tough for Miraidon right now, but things do get better with Surging Sparks, that's for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. We see a Snorlax stall from Matthias Campos, of course, Tim Franklin's Terrapagos deck, and then rounding things out is the Gardevoir from Matthias.
Actually, check. I'm just curious, Matthias. That name sounds familiar, especially with Gardevoir. Did they play Gardevoir at something recently? No,
No,
nothing
they
too
played
recently.
Lost Box at Lille and then Iron Thorns at Joinville. So they've been traveling this season, it looks like.
Yeah. The last event before that was Buenos Aires, but actually, we've had 2 Buenos Aires in this year, right? That was
Yeah,
May.
well, this was May. Yeah. So this was a while
At
ago.
different seasons, but within the same year. It is kind of funny that like happens in the same year because it feels like it. Yeah, that wasn't that long ago, to be honest. That we just had the Buenos Aires special event. I guess I didn't realize that. Do you think the? I don't actually know. Do you think the control played Rotom or the stall played Rotom? You think they had Rotom?
No idea. No idea. Did you see any of these people on stream when you streamed day one?
I saw Isaac had a lot of Bravery Charms.
Yeah.
That's it. I think I don't think I saw anyone else. Jeremy made Jeremy and Giovanni I saw on stream actually as well. They both made their way on stream, but they're not really unknowns into what they're playing or what they're playing in their build. But yeah, Justin, Matthias did not make it onto stream, so I'm not quite sure what they were rocking. But Isaac had the Bravery Charms, of course, locked up. I want to see
Yeah.
someone play the ancient booster capsule on top of the Bravery Charms. I think it could be good. I'm like I'm convinced because 4 Bravery Charm feels so good. It's like
Well,
one of those things where it's like, would
maybe
you
you could
play?
do it at Sacramento, you know?
No, I don't want to play Raging Ball in Sacramento. Raging Ball's like it's not new enough. That's not like a new enough edition, and the deck also doesn't change at all with Surging Sparks. I don't think.
No. Oh, no, you don't.
No,
It
I
doesn't.
mean you could put a Pikachu in there if you want. I guess I don't know why you would, but
Yeah, just for fun. Oh, no, Latias, hold up.
I don't know if you got that bench space for that. I guess it could be a tech though for certain matchups.
Mhm.
Um, you could
It would be
tech
hard to
for that.
not want to still just play switch cards because the healing is pretty relevant pretty often.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I guess you're not that overly concerned with bench space, depending on what matchup it is, though. It depends how wide you have to go early on. Like squawkability is like the big thing. It's like, do you have to play squawkability to play the game? If you don't, you can play like a reasonably small bench. You don't have to go too wide too fast.
I think the big things to take of note from this tournament heading into LAIC is definitely the vacuums in the Palkia. How much does that change your Bolt matchup? You know, if it makes it, you know, 50-50 or even like favorable, then all of a sudden, you know, Palkia, I think definitely is something that could make its way back into the meta pretty sizably. But this close to the event, I have to imagine, and also like this being a special event, it is a major tournament per se, but like uh, there's probably less eyes on this than there would be at a regular regional championships or something like that,
Definitely,
right?
yeah. Like 1,000,
Um,
2,000 player tournament. There definitely is
yeah.
like a difference in like you should definitely weight those results heavier for sure.
Yeah, so like
At those
how
tournaments.
this close to the tournament, I have to imagine this will have minimal impact overall on LAIC, but a few things that the attentive people could take note of for sure.
Yeah. Like maybe just like at this point, just be like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna play Giovanni's 60 because
Yeah.
why not at this point?
So real quick before we move on to guess that flavor text, we do have one new card to talk about. It's a pretty interesting one. It's one of the baby Pokemon. It's the first Budew that has been released in quite some time. And here it is 30 HP little Budew with a free attack, of course, no retreat cost as well, 10 damage. And then during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand.
Yeah, so this is a pretty good attack for or like it's a pretty good Pokemon because you can like kind of use it on your first turn going second is kind of the big thing here. It's like the attack is free. You could be able to retreat your active Pokemon with energy if it has a 1 retreat cost, which a lot of Pokemon do. Some have more. Some of those decks play switch cards, like Raging Ball plays switch card. I don't know if Raging Ball's playing Budew, but just an example. And then, especially if you're playing like some kind of evolution deck, you're not doing anything anyways. So having like another option potentially slot on your opponent seems pretty good. Now, decks like Dragapult and Charizard kind of have something already dedicated to that turn one effective attack / end turn phase. Rotom, the Cleffa attack. But I think the decks where this could really thrive in would be stuff like RegiDrago V Star, or I had another one that was it's not Lugia. What is like another effective stage 1 Pokemon. You're not doing it. Oh, like Ceruledge. Something like a
Mhm.
Ceruledge or even a Golden Go would really, really like a card like this to just slow down your opponent, right? Just item lock them. That's like a pretty big hit going into their next turn. I've already been I've been playing the Ceruledge deck with the Screamtail EX, and it's pretty devastating to the opponent to have to deal with something like that. And the Screamtail is probably a little bit more devastating than something like the Budew, but depending on the matchup, it would definitely be the other way around. And the thing with Screamtail is it costs an energy to attack with the Screamtail. For anyone who doesn't know what the Screamtail EX does, it says on your first turn going second only, you can use this attack. Your opponent can't play any supporters during their next turn. So it's pretty devastating to have to deal with that for pretty much any deck. No deck wants to have to deal with that. But the Budew, you can get your active a little bit more consistently because the Screamtail, you need to get like find a jet energy and all that. But Budew, you can also Poffin for as well, like to even add to the
Yeah.
value or how powerful this card can be. So definitely a pretty strong card.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this is something that'll pop up somewhere along the way, and I think you pretty clearly outlined the places that it seems best. This is only the third ever Badoo that has been printed, and the last one was printed in Stormfront
My
all the way back
goodness.
in 2008. Yeah, there was a few episodes ago where we asked about like, did anyone know like what the oldest, like most recently printed card of something, like what's the card that has gone the longest without having a card printed. And the comments, I think, came to the conclusion that it was Budew. So now that Badoo's being printed, I wonder what now is the the Pokemon that has had the drought for the longest time.
Yeah, the longest streak between having a card printed and not having a card printed to now. Not like in between printings, but yeah, Budew is definitely up there. But close that one off. I wonder who the current king of not being printed is in the Pokemon TCG for Pokemon.
Yeah, no one will ever beat Kadabra for the length of time not being printed.
Yeah.
Like 2003 to 2023, 20-year span, be pretty hard to top that.
Yeah, yeah. But who's currently
Yeah, who's
building the biggest
currently
streak? Who's trying to beat Kadabra?
All right. Well, we can move on here to guess that flavor text. But of course, before we do, we got to take a moment to thank our fantastic sponsor, Dragon Shield, for supporting us here at the Uncommon Energy Podcast. Dragon Shield makes some of the best card gaming and tabletop gaming products on the market. We love them for their sleeves. They've also got deck boxes and binders. We've all used all of these other products as well. I use the Magic Carpet XL to store my cube and transport it when I travel with my cube. I use the cube shields whenever I am building the packs for my cube. So lots of different products you can find on Dragon Shield to utilize as accessories for your Pokemon trading card game adventure.
Yeah, yeah, I'm getting ready to dust off some of the boxes of sleeves I got behind me because I haven't gone to an event in a while. I'm gonna be bringing some yellows, or I got the Auroras as well. I guess I have to make a pick here in about a week and a half or so before I head to Sacramento to play in the regional championship. But excited to sleeve up with some Dragon Shields to play in a competition for the first time this year.
They do have some colors out to celebrate the anniversary here, 25th anniversary. Of course, we talked a few months ago about the silver and blue sleeves. They're blue on the outside, the back, and silver matte on the inside, dual matte sleeves. And then they do have a new color out, the golden inside, the red gold, red on the back, and gold on the inside, which I have seen some pictures of. Look really, really nice.
Yeah, those I actually like those. That's a good combo right there. I actually really like that color right there. I'm a big
The
fan of
red
that one.
gold.
Yeah, the red gold. Those are sick.
And if you want to pick up some Dragon Shield sleeves to use for yourself, be sure to go over to their website and use our code UEPOD to get yourself 5% off your order and also help support us here on the podcast. I'm actually going to be playing at Sacramento in a couple of weekends, and I am very ready to go with some classic sleeves. Not sure which color I'm going to go with yet, but going to use the classics. No mats for me this time. We're running it back old school with the classics.
Breaking them out. It's been a while. So it's been a while since I've seen anyone use the classics. Big
I'm bringing them
throwback.
back. I'm gonna taking them to Sacramento. We're gonna take it all the way, and then classics are gonna become the thing. Everyone's gonna be ordering classics, and they're gonna be using code UEPOD when they do it.
Themselves 5% off. All right, Chip. Guess that flavor text up next. This week, you are picking a card for me to read the flavor text for me to try and guess which Pokemon belongs to that card. Of course, if I get it right, Get myself 4 points, but for each lifeline I choose to use, I'll be getting 1 less point. Lifelines are, as always, what set the card is from, what stage the card is, and then read an attack name. And I am ready for this week's flavor text. Chip, hit me with it.
Yeah, currently I am leading 32 to 26 on the point scale. I did miss out on, I probably should have been able to clean up 1 point last week. But what set the card was from actually ended up hurting me, I think, in the end. Because I could not identify the correct answer was Cosmog, and I could not identify a Solgaleo or Lunala from Cosmic Eclipse. And it's because, or not Cosmic Eclipse, what set was it? Uh
I know you got me.
it was Unified Minds. It was Unified Minds, and I was like, there was not a Solgaleo or Lunala in
Yeah,
that set,
that's right. That's right.
and it's because there wasn't, but there was for some reason just a random Cosmog. What the heck? I got bodied. All right. Anyway, it's my turn. I've got the card ready, Azul. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Here we go. Apparently, blank has been allowing people to ride on its back since ancient times. Depictions of this have been found in 10,000-year-old murals.
Wait, go again. Sorry, say that again.
Apparently, blank has been allowing people to ride on its back since ancient times. Depictions of this have been found in 10,000-year-old murals.
Uh, maybe Dragonite. Wasn't there something with Dragonite? I remember watching Dragonite in one of the early episodes of the show with like the lighthouse. For some reason that comes to mind. The other one, what is the bird taxi? But that's like not the same thing because it like carries the taxi, doesn't it? Or whatever it carries. Oh no, but it carries them on their back, doesn't it? What is it called? What is that bird called?
Are you
It's
thinking of Corviknight
yeah, Corviknight.
that carries the taxi?
It could be Corviknight. Go ahead, read me the flavor text one more time.
Apparently, blank has been allowing people to ride on its back since ancient times. Depictions of this have been found in 10,000-year-old murals.
That is, I'm pretty sure the taxi thing is on Corviknight's back. It's not like carrying it. I could just lock in Corviknight. I don't know how ancient of a Pokemon it is, but Corviknights, I don't know, like knights, like olden. I mean, maybe that tracks. I'm actually not sure. I mean, one of them is something Squire, basically, right? In the stage one, something Squire. So I could. I'm gonna let's use one lifeline here. Let's use what set the card is from because that'll be able to help me gauge if it is Corviknight or not.
What set the card is from? It is from Paldean Fates.
It's a newer set, right?
It is a newer set.
I'm just gonna lock in Corviknight.
You're just locking it in.
Locking in Corviknight.
All right, interesting. Well, before I tell you if you got it right or wrong, I'm gonna give the other lifelines to the people at home so that they can continue to play along. First off, what set the card is from? We do know Paldean Fates. What stage the card is? What stage is Corviknight Azul?
Stage 2, I'm pretty
Oh, well,
sure.
this Pokemon is a basic.
Uh
And then read an attack name. Its attack name is Acceleration Drive.
all right, let me try and guess it. Oh, is it? It's not Rayquaza though. Is it Rayquaza?
It is
No,
not.
it wouldn't be Rayquaza. Let me try one. Man, I don't even know that. Yeah, go ahead.
I
Yeah,
thought
wait,
this one
Acceleration
might would
Drive?
be I thought you would be able to get this one, but I'm pretty confident that a lot of people in the comments, especially anyone who played Scarlet and Violet, probably got this one correct. And some of the clues are in the flavor text, like ancient times. The Pokemon
Is it an
is
ancient Pokemon? Oh,
Cyclizar.
what the heck? I would have never gotten Cyclizar.
I thought you might be able to get this one. So,
Yeah.
Miraidon and Koraidon are the paradox forms of Cyclizar.
Oh, it does say ride on its back, not fly on its back. That
Yeah.
if I had thought about that a little bit harder when I heard ride, I just assumed we were flying. I don't know why I assumed we were flying. Um, I guess I could have thought that about that a little bit harder. And if we were flying, it would probably say fly on its back, right?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, but I
Not
don't think I would have ever
sure.
gone to Cyclizar. I maybe would have been able to get to Miraidon or Koraidon. An Acceleration Drive,
And
yeah,
in
I'd probably be able
ancient
to.
times would have been Koraidon because it's an ancient
Yeah,
Pokemon, right? So,
I mean, I don't know if I would have. Oh yeah, hopefully I would have been able to get there if I had been able to get to one of those. And putting Acceleration Drive to either of those seems well. It seems like it could be on Miraidon. I don't know about a Koraidon though, but I don't think I would have ever got to Cyclizar to be honest.
tough, buddy, tough. I really thought you had a
Lucky.
chance, but I'm sure
Why
that
haven't
plenty of
they?
people in the comments got there.
Why haven't they printed a good Cyclizar? There's like they've all sucked.
That's not true.
Well, there was the one. Do you remember before NAIC testing Lugia with colorless Lugia? We were trying to put the free retreat
I do
Cyclozar in there.
remember. Yeah,
They're trying
we
to pit. We couldn't like we wanted to play more Snorlaxes, but we had 4, I think, and we are like, well, we need more ways to get into these Snorlaxes. This
I
is
don't remember
effectively
what
plus
the
one
exact situation
Snorlax.
was. I don't think we had 4 Snorlaxes.
I think we were basically we're like we can't. It's hard for us to get to our next Snorlax. That's what we're struggling at doing.
I think we
Um,
just wanted to pivot to our attacker. I don't know that it was specifically Snorlax
but there wasn't a lot of attacking options. It was like Snorlax or
or
Weirdier.
Lugia. Yeah, or Weirdier. Yeah, there was no
Yeah,
Mew EX or anything yet, I don't think.
yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe you're
yeah.
right though.
We did consider the Cyclozar. But yeah, that is definitely that's the one
That's
opportunity I
2
think it
years
had to
ago.
shine. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
while ago. I was excited too because oh wait, no, this one oh, I do remember after the fact because like we always go out of our way to usually play the like non-hollows of these cards and stuff like that. And it was a hollow in Scarlet and Violet base set, but then it came out in the Happy Meals as a non-hollow version of the card. So I got myself a Happy Meal. I got myself a non-hollow Cyclozar,
Just in case.
and it's been sitting in a box ever since then.
You think what if we're keeping like Pokemon is keeping McDonald's in business? What if without Pokemon, McDonald's just wouldn't exist? Like, you ever think about that?
No, not at
Did
all.
you go get a Happy Meal because there was a Pokemon card in it?
Yeah.
Okay, times that by a million.
Yeah, times that by it happens once a year for like a month out of the year, and then McDonald's is still a pretty successful restaurant chain outside of that.
That's true. The last time I went to McDonald's was not for Pokemon cards, so hey, I'm just saying. It's just a thought I had.
This is like insane tangent over here. All right, all right. Well, better luck next time, Azul. Yeah, I thought you were gonna be able to get that one, but couldn't quite lock it up. We'll see if the people in the comments thought that one was easy. Maybe I went a little too hard on you. Maybe I have to go back and give you like something. I got to give you like Gyarados and Dragonite and stuff like that in the future.
Yeah, or give me something like Cosmog. That one's pretty free.
Oh, come on now. Come on. All right. Well, now let's move on to the final segment here where we're going to be talking about LAIC. It is this coming weekend. We're putting out this episode early, so anyone who's traveling there has a chance to listen to it if they are wanting to get some last second info. Also, because I will be traveling down. I'm leaving on Tuesday to head down to cast the event this weekend. So very thankful to Pokemon for bringing me out to cast the event. Very much looking forward to it. Azul will not be going, but I'm sure he will be co-streaming it along at home.
That is the plan, yeah.
And
And it
here
will
we are.
be actually now that you made me think about it, I'm gonna look it up right now. What time is it in Sao Paulo? It
It's
is
an hour
2
ahead of East Coast, I think, right? Is it 1 a.m.?
2 a.m. right now.
Oh, it's 2 hours ahead of East Coast. Oh, because we have daylight savings and they don't, maybe.
Yeah. So I am gonna have to get up at like oh no, the stream probably won't start till like 10 a.m. over there, probably, right? Like the round won't actually start, like getting into
Probably
the round.
9:30, I would say.
9:30ish. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's already up on the YouTube channel when they have like the scheduled times.
It's probably on uh
Although, yeah, what Pokemon.com/broadcast.
Pokemon.com/broadcast.
That's the one.
America Internationals Pacific time, 4 a.m. is when the stream is going to start. So then
Okay.
probably 30 minutes or so
Yeah.
after that.
Okay. I gotta wake up not super well, still pretty early, but not as early as the European events still, which is nice.
Yep.
All right. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's see how much we disagree on where these decks should place. So are we doing S tier or are we considering like S tier to be like tier one effectively? Or do we want to like consider S tier S tier? Or
Well,
is
S
this
tier
tiers one
being like it's
is
the
this
deck.
tiers 1 to 5 or is this S as
I
like
don't think we're doing D. It's like S tier, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. That's how I always think about it.
we can get tier 4 involved. There'll be a deck there. Something
Yeah,
will end up tier
probably on
4.
this list. Yeah, so
We got a lot of decks.
we took a lot of decks here. What is there? 16 decks, I think, here listed. And we are going to be ranking them not necessarily with just how good we think of a deck they are. We're talking specifically about
How good
the
of a play.
LAIC tournament. How good are they headed in to LAIC? And yeah, S tier to me is just like a deck that stands above the rest. And then tier 1 is just like the most powerful, best decks in the format. Um, so looking at this list here, the decks we have Raging Bolt, Dragapult, or not Dragapult, RegiDrago. We've got Charizard Pidgeot, Lugia. We've got Palkia Dusknoir. We've got Terapagos Dusknoir, Snorlax, Gardevoir, Iron Thorns, Banette Gardevoir, Lost Box, Control, Pidgeot Control. We have Dragapult. We have Gouging Fire, Miraidon, and Golden Go. We've got these three up here because Miraidon just got top 8 at the Buenos Aires special event. Gouging Fire had 3 top 32 finishes in Gdansk, and Golden Go had 2 top 32 finishes in Gdansk. So these decks have been doing decently at major tournaments most recently. So we thought we would at least talk about them for a moment. As we go through these decks as well, we'll talk about maybe why we think they are ranked where they are and what techs or deck list inclusions or omissions we like for these decks headed into the weekend. I guess
My
first
question
off,
for I was
yeah,
gonna
go
say for the Gouging Fire and the Golden Guy, I wonder if Yella or Luke are going to
ahead.
LAIC because they'll make up like 50% of the day 2 of both those decks if they go to LAIC. Um, yeah. Sorry, what you saying? Go ahead.
So I mean, yeah, the first question we can go down the list and place them as we get to them here. I think they're listed here by meta percentage based on online tournaments. Um, but what do you think before we just start going down the list? Is there something that belongs in S tier that is a step above the rest, the definitive best deck, best play headed into the weekend?
I think if it's anything, it is Lugia, but and I think it probably like I have been giving it a step above everything for like the last couple tournaments. It probably didn't deserve that for what was the European tournament that we had most recently?
Gdansk.
Gdansk. I don't think it was deserving of that for Gdansk. And for this tournament, LAIC, like I think Gdansk there was a little bit of a target on its back. I don't know how big of a target's going to be on its back though for LAIC. I don't think it's going to be super huge. Like I mean, Dragos will still have their Sinnohs, but like yeah, I don't know if like I don't know, Palkia Dusknoirs will be rolling up with like an enhanced hammer or something like that, or a Sinnoh of
Yeah.
their own, right? So, and Charizard decks even recently haven't been playing like Sinnohs or enhanced hammers, mainly because they try and use Dusknoir to kind of match the Chinchinos. Is kind of the thought process for what they try and do in the matchup. But I feel like Lugia comes out on top on that most of the time. And yeah, so for LAIC, like my prediction as of right now, how I'm feeling, I don't think Lugia's going to be that focused on. So I do give it the edge over everything else, all the other good decks in the format. So I would like I think it is like does have maybe it's not a huge step above everything, but it is a step above all the other good decks. So, but I don't know if we want to put it in S tier because of that, or we should put it along some other decks in A tier.
I mean, I think I agree with you about all of those points. Like, and yeah, a step above kind of the other best. Like, I'm thinking of the decks that will probably go in A tier, like RegiDrago, V Star. Um, you know, I think Lugia probably just is a step above some of these things that will probably end up in the A tier. As far as quality of play for this big tournament, you've got a couple auto losses out there, but a lot of like pretty solid matchups and a lot of 50-50s. Lugia, I think, is kind of a miserable deck to play for a major sometimes, but you can't deny its results, its success. And I think for this big tournament too, we'll see some really good players choosing to play it. I think, yeah, I'm down to give it the S tier, to be honest, for this tournament.
Has Kieran even like sleeved up another card for the last 2 months? I don't even
Yeah.
know. I'm pretty sure Kieran did play Lugia over at Buenos Aires. Kieran was there,
Do
so
we
yeah,
want to do the meta share for this?
yeah, we could throw something. We don't have to like spend too much time on it. I mean, I oh 10 to 12, somewhere in that range, I think is where we'll see Lugia.
Yeah, I would say it's probably a little underplayed for where it should be, and that's like really been the case for Lugia this entire format. It's been underplayed for where it should be. I would say, like Baltimore, it was like 6%. I guess Baltimore was old format, right?
Yeah.
Or what am I thinking of? Louisville, it was like 6 or 8%, right?
Yeah, it was like really low to begin this format. And it started to climb its way back up. It's like, wait, Lugia's kind of still just the deck. I think part of that percentage is like there is always like a deck in the format that is the if you're a newer player to the game or what is the simplest deck to play. Lugia kind of used to be that deck, I feel like, but Raging Ball has taken that percentage.
Yeah.
There is like a deck in the meta that gets an inflated play percentage just due to being the noob deck, right? Just being like if you're a new player to the game, if you're a little bit more or less experienced in the game, or if you're someone who like isn't spending a ton of time on the game, Raging Bolt is kind of the deck to go to just kind of like low investment, high returns, right? Raging Bolt has
Mhm.
kind of been that deck. I think Lugia still reasonably fits that category, but there's can only be one that is like the one, and Raging Bolt has been the one. So I think that eats at Lugia's percentage a little bit, which is what we've been seeing.
And speaking of Raging Bolts, that's the next one up for us to rank. Now, I have a feeling you would want to put it in C tier, tier
No, I
3.
don't know if I go that low.
No? Okay. I think it's a
Um,
solid my first inkling is like this is a super solid B tier deck choice for this tournament.
I think I wouldn't go lower than B. And I think the it's kind of funny. Like Louisville happened, and after Louisville, the meta was kind of at a little bit of a shift around Raging Bolt after Louisville,
Yeah.
and I think we've kind of settled, right? Like the Palkia decks are probably going to play 2 vacuum. Everything that it was going to play a vacuum or jamming tower, even post Louisville, isn't cutting it. No one's cutting their tool removal cards, right? They got added in after Louisville. Raging Bolts are keeping their 4 bravery charms, and all the tool removal is still staying, right?
Yeah.
So
Terrapagos playing a vacuum.
yeah. With that in mind, I do kind of feel good about Raging Bolt going into LAIC. I don't know if I want to put it in A though. I think we still probably keep it at B. Um, I feel better about it than I have in the past because I feel like there's even though like the tool removal isn't being removed, there is less of a target on its back for sure. Like I think it was a pretty mid play post Louisville for the next couple events, but there definitely is a way smaller target on its back than there has in the past. But I don't know if that really changes too much, so I'm still inclined to want to put it in that B tier.
Yeah. I think I totally agree with it. I do still think this will be the most popular deck in the tournament.
Yeah.
I think 15% is a solid place to put that right now.
Yeah, no, we don't have to overthink it. It could be higher, could be a little bit lower, but
Yeah. Next up, we've got RegiDrago V Star. So this at the start of this format, this deck was kind of pushed out of the meta. It does have a pretty bad Raging Bolt matchup, and that
it
is
was
really
tough.
the only thing I think holding RegiDrago back right now. It's like pretty solid against basically everything else, and I think this is a very very solid A tier deck.
Yeah, I think so as well. The power that Drago brings is just so high. I think Lugia can be a little bit tough as well. But I know there are some of the, you know, main RegiDrago enjoyers. Think it's like about 50-50. You got the Sinnoh,
They
and
also thought Gardevoir was a really good matchup, and we saw how that went on your
that was interesting. Yeah, that was definitely interesting.
on your show match that you did this last week.
Although I think even the Guard 4 players don't think it's a 4-1. They don't think it's an 80% win rate
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Guard 4.
Small sample
Uh,
size.
Small sample size for sure, but Turbo Guardy definitely can hang with Drago. I know Henry Chow post Baltimore or during like one of his interviews at Baltimore was like it's probably like he thinks it gets close to 50-50 with like the turbo build. Drago's had a ton of success recently. It didn't really show up at where were we? Buenos Aires, right? Didn't really show up at Buenos
Yeah.
Aires, but everything's gonna like Lugia's taken 2 tournaments off. I don't think anyone's being like, oh, Lugia's just bad now, right? Like, no, I don't think anyone's calling Lugia bad because it didn't show up at Gdansk or Buenos Aires into a top 8. Like, Lugia's still very much on everyone's radar, still very powerful. Drago's definitely the same
I
way.
think that Drago and Palkia are probably maybe Charizard, but I think RegiDrago is probably the highest skill ceiling of the top decks in the format, the top 6 or so decks at least. Maybe Gardevoir would be a little higher, but
I
it's
think
probably outside the top
Terrapagos.
6.
I think I rate Terrapagos pretty highly in that category, to
Okay,
be
sure.
honest.
I
Yeah,
could see it being
like
up there.
I feel like that deck is you have to think the furthest ahead out of any other deck in the format. Like you get more punished for not realizing what you're doing 2 turns from now on this turn.
I say that to say that I think like RegiDrago will skew pretty heavily towards like the top
Oh,
level players
sure.
going to the
Yes,
tournament. Like a lot
definitely.
of the best players in the game will probably land on RegiDrago, I would say.
And on the
Um,
flip side of that is not a what would you even like say? It's like not. It's like how I said like Raging Ball is kind of the low investment, high reward. Like Regidrago is like the opposite of that, right? You need kind of like a higher investment to get not even technically a better reward, right? But your deck is a little bit harder for your opponent to play against, right? That's kind of like one of the pluses of playing something like a RegiDrago is like
yeah.
your opponent has to play better to beat RegiDrago on average than playing against a Regibolt.
I'm gonna go with like 8% meta share on this, I think.
Yeah, that seems reasonable, especially for
Alberto
where it's
did
been at.
just win Gdansk with it, so it might push its meta share a little bit, I guess, day 1 to day 2.
There's like a little bit of a question now that like
In
Now,
Gdansk, it was 8% day one.
yeah, for me, there's a little bit of a question because I have nothing on the line. I'm not going to LAIC. I haven't even played Drago recently, but I am excited to try it with Scramble Switch. What do you think? Owls or no owls? How do you feel about?
I've never been the biggest fan of the owl. I think it's fine, but I would probably lean towards playing no owl, more Tex, because it's
Yeah.
not like
Well, they're not really
I
sacrificing
don't think
techs.
owl boosts your consistency enough over
No,
like, owl almost feels like a tech in and of itself, right? Like,
I agree. It's like to find the big combos for certain matchups. Like up against
yeah,
Stall, finding Canceling Clone turn
but,
2 is huge.
if you're playing owl, you probably aren't having deck space to play something like Halucha or something like that. And I don't know that Halucha is worth playing for this tournament, but I
Yeah.
that's just like an example of like a you can if you're playing a 1/1 owl, um you're not gonna be able to fit some of this stuff. Like looking at Alberto's list, like he's playing a Mew EX, which I think I like a lot, heading in to this weekend. Like another additional draw support in addition to like Pheasantipity. Because like, if you put Pheasantipity in play and that's all you have in play, someone's gonna go Prime Catcher Iono you, and you're gonna maybe have a hard time getting reset up, right? But if you have Pheasantipity and Mew, now you've got two ways to kind of get a little bit more draw power, right? And
Yeah.
it's harder to play something like Mew if you don't have, if it's harder to play something like Mew if you're cramming an owl into your deck list.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been a huge fan of the Owls. I always like kind of say this, like there's some pretty good players choosing to play the Owls, and my experience with Drago right now is pretty low. But I'm also a big fat fan of Alberto, and Alberto's also pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and say the Owls are wrong, and no Owls is the way to go. Um, there's nothing really to say about Raging Bolt, but we didn't really talk about Lugia, unless there is something you think there is worth saying about Raging Bolt. But I think for Bravery Charm,
Oh
consider an
yeah,
Ancient
sorry. Yeah.
Capsule. I think is the only thing to say about Raging Bolt, right? Like would you ever play the Ancient Castle? That's the only thing I would ever think about. I think you're
You have
definitely
been
playing for Bravery Charm.
you have been so hype on the capsule. I don't think
Get it
I'm
in
gonna
there.
cram the fifth tool card in there. I think I'm gonna be all right with the four bravery charm. Yeah, I think something similar to Caleb's list. I think I would lean more towards that. The no shoes, have the option of the Luminion.
Mhm.
Maybe a little biased there, I guess, but I do like that list. As far as Lugia goes, like if I wanted to play Lugia to this tournament, I would just play Kieran's 60 from the last tournament and then like not really think much more about it outside of that.
It's tough to go against Kieran 60 to be honest. Pedro Torres played Lugia at Buenos Aires and did have the Raikou in there. I don't think played the basic Lightning, was still on like the 2/2 Rat. I think the two cards that are like worth considering right now is the Water Pawn and the Rat, or the Water Pawn and the Raikou, even if you don't play the basic Light. I think the basic Lightning Vessel thing is too much right now. I think you need the 2/2 Rat. I think that's just like kind of too good in too many situations. The Raikou is still decent. That's pretty good up against Terrapagos because sometimes you can't make hands work in that matchup.
The one
And
other
then
thing I would consider that I do kind of like is the Arvin Vitality Band combo that
yeah,
Yoko
that's what I was about to
played.
bring up.
Yeah, I do think that combo is pretty good, and there's, like, a lot of reasons out there to play the Vitality Band, like, especially if something like, Terrapagos picks up and play a little bit.
Yep,
The
and it
Vitality Band
has
is
been.
pretty good against that, so that would be probably the one thing. I definitely would still wanna get the 2/2 Rat in the mix, but, yeah, I could definitely see Arvin Vitality Band combo being worth playing.
Yeah, so there's like a couple things to think about, but you couldn't go wrong with the Kieran build, I think, as well. Like if all the tech cards feel too gimmicky, the Water Pawn, the Raikou, the Arvin Vitality Band, then just playing the Kieran 60 would not be a bad way to go, I don't think, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, well, we just talked about a lot about Terrapagos, so we could go there next. Terrapagos Dusknoir. Now, this is a deck that I've always thought is a good deck since it's come out. I've definitely been underwhelmed by it in kind of like post its initial release. Tor do well with it with the Bouffalons, so I definitely question if Bouffalons are correct or not. I doubt Giovanni played Bouffalons here, though, and still saw success. I'm like, it's definitely a B tier deck. I am kind of leaning towards potentially putting it in A, just because it's like this all the success we're seeing from it recently. It probably is a little bit better than I personally have kind of given it credit. But I do think you have some tough matchups. Bolt with a lot of charms is tough. I mean, we're playing the vacuum now for sure. I feel like, and then even the Drago matchup I feel like is also tough. So it's close, but it feels like at least slightly unfavored. Um, so this one I'm kind of sitting between B and A for the Terrapagos.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I would probably lean a little bit more towards A as far as a play for the tournament goes. In general, when it comes to these big tournaments, I'm going to give a little bit more of an edge to the deck that has more options compared to the thing that is the most linear. Most of the time. Something like Lugia is a little bit of an exception, right? It's a pretty linear deck overall, but it does have like enough options matchup based, right? With Iron Hands, Chinchino, all the different
Yeah.
attackers. Raging Bolt is probably the most linear of the decks, right? Um, you're doing basically the same thing every single time. RegiDrago, you've got lots of options. Terrapagos, not the most linear deck. You are obviously trying to attack with Terrapagos, use your Dusknoir effectively, but it's like you said earlier, it's the deck that you maybe have to plan the farthest ahead with. So when that's the case, I like for these major tournaments where it's the best players in the world competing at them. I'm gonna give a little bit of the edge to the more skill expressive decks, and I think like Terrapagos fits that. So I would be down to put it in A. I don't think we're gonna order decks within the tiers, right? We don't normally
Yeah.
do that. Um, it probably is somewhere between. Like if we were to order it, I probably would put it below the RegiDrago, but I do think I would personally want to lean towards putting it in A. I don't know how strongly you feel about that.
I'm kind of indifferent, so I'm down to just go and throw it up there if that's how you're feeling about it for sure. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm a little bit indifferent.
Does that make sense
Um,
though? Kind of what I'm saying.
yeah, I would definitely like if we were gonna or the ordering or just like the thought process. Yeah, the thought process I think is tracks as well. I think if you have some new innovation for Raging Bolt, I don't know what it would be. Raging Bolt would probably be a tier A or tier S play. If you
Sure.
had new innovation, if someone has like new technology for Raging Bolt, it probably is an A tier or S tier play going into LAIC. Or even some of these other more linear decks, something like maybe a Miraidon. If you have new tech for Miraidon maybe is like an A tier play. And that's why like Miraidon or Raging Bolt was such a good play for Louisville because like the new tech was discovered, right? Or whatever. It's not like anything too new. People have played Bravery Charm and Raging Ball before,
But
but it's
going
like,
so
okay,
heavy, yeah.
yeah, four Bravery Charm, 3 or 4 Bravery Charm right now in this meta makes sense. Take advantage of the fact that no one's playing it. Success, right? Yeah, and Terrapagos will probably what 7-8%.
Yeah, I was gonna say 7, 8. So let's go 7 with it. Um, Next up, we've got the Charizard Pidgeot. So this deck hasn't performed the best overall in this format, but it's been there. At the Louisville Regional Championships, we did see Sebastian Lashmet get top 4 with the deck. I do think Charizard is still good, but I don't know that there's anything really like separating it from the pack, right? Like, what's the big reason to play it over like Terrapagos, Drago? Like, I just don't. It's not like in the past, Charizard has been the dominant deck in the format, right? It's been the S tier deck for tournaments in the past. I just don't know that there is enough to draw like the power, like it feels like Charizard, like if you're playing Charizard right now, it's because it's like a deck you're super experienced with, I feel like, and you're building it to be able to like it's like the best deck maybe to play to like have answers to like different matchups, meta, different situations that come up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there was like a resurgence of Charizard. Was it going into Louisville or after Louisville? I think it was after Louisville because of like the Raging Bolt
Yeah,
hype, but and it started to die off again. Yeah, and I look at this list, and usually in the past I would say, oh, if I had to pick between Charizard and Raging Ball, I'd play Charizard. I think I'd play Raging Ball over Charizard if I had to pick between the two. I
yeah,
think it's like a C tier. I'd put Charizard in C tier right
it
now for
feels
sure. It just
pretty
feels
rough to say.
yeah, but it's not going anywhere. Like Charizard will be probably a tier S tier, A tier deck throughout its existence still in the future, right? It's like
Yeah.
not going anywhere. It's not great for right now. It feels kind of mid. Yeah, I'm down for C tier for Charizard.
And I honestly could see this being like a 5% deck,
Yeah.
like, which is pretty wild to say as well. Um,
People like ask me questions all the time, like is Charizard like people like that's been a big one recently. It's like is Charizard dead? It's like no. Well, it's like I feel like what you're asking is just like you say is Charizard dead. It kind of seems like you're asking like, oh, is it just like it's not? It's a terrible deck. So it's like no, it's just not good right now. Like yeah, the meta shifts and ebbs and flows all the time. Yeah, Charizard's just not great right now. But it's like you wouldn't categorize it as a bad deck. It is still a good deck that is just not good right now, right?
mhm.
Whereas like some decks are like just bad decks that can be good right now because the meta is just like perfect for it. There's way more metas where Charizard's a good deck than a bad deck. Right now, it's just kind of a bad deck. It feels like.
So next up, we've got Palkia Dusknoir.
And I guess
Obviously,
I was gonna
oh,
say I don't think any of us would think we don't have really a comment to make on Charizard.
oh, as far as
Bouffalance and
like deck lists,
yeah, Bouffalance and Terrapagos.
yeah, I think I like Buffalont as well in Terrapagos. I've thought about. I wonder if you could build a version of Terrapagos like that didn't have Noctowl in it, and had some other like a thin Bibarel line because it would just create so much deck space for you, and then you could like always have the Buffalons in play.
Yeah,
The reality is that Noctowl is probably just like way too good to
pretty
to
broken.
omit, but and if you did want to play something that didn't have Noctowl in it, it would probably be like a Palkia Terrapagos deck, right? Which is like a deck in and of itself. But
Yeah, and I think I would lean towards the
thought,
Bouffalance as well, because I feel like when I played Terrapagos Dusknoir, the deck was fine. Like the list I played the most with was Giovanni's build, which is by far the most successful build of the deck. But it felt like fine, and I feel like it maybe does need a little more power through something like the Tord build with the Bouffalance. I don't know if you need the Pal Pad per se, but like you need. If you, it felt like the deck needs a little bit more to keep up in the current meta, so I would definitely lean towards the Bouffalance over the non Bouffalant build for sure.
yeah. And then Charizard deck list choices, probably Sebastian's list.
Yeah, I don't know. That
Um,
one's tough. I mean, I still kind of like the idea of no Dusknoir Charizard,
sure.
but yeah, just Charizard in general across the board feels pretty iffy. So I don't have too strong an opinion on Charizard overall. Besides, I still like no Dusknoir, but I don't think anyone's gonna play no Dusknoir Charizard. So, so you can't go wrong with Sebastian's list.
Yeah, I'm looking back at it right now, and yeah, I don't think there's anything not in here I would necessarily want. I could see Hero's Cape being a spec to play. That's one thing I would say. Unfair Stamp is obviously pretty strong, but I could see Hero's Cape being a good call.
But am I tripping? I swear Sebastian played a canceling cologne. Maybe.
No, but Nathan Osterkatz did play a Canceling Cologne, who got top.
Oh.
He got top four in seniors, and they played like the same 59,
Oh, okay. That's probably where
and
I saw
they
it, and
did
he
like the
shouted
master
out.
class together.
Oh, okay, okay. I think I saw probably I probably saw on Twitter Nathan shout out Sebastian, like just being playing like similar 60 or whatever.
Yeah,
And there was a canceling cologne there. All right, yeah, that's definitely where it came from then.
yeah.
All right. Uh I mean, we didn't really segue into another deck with that one at all. So we could talk Palkia Dusknoir just
Yep.
won the most recent major tournament. I'm still not too hype on it though, right? There's been the adaptation, the double vacuum to help deal with the Bravery Charms and the Raging Bolt. But even then, the deck like the Drago matchup is tough. Lugia matchup is like super close. I give Lugia the edge overall, especially if they have something like the Water Pawn. I feel like you can make like a really big, basically game winning play with Water Pawn, where instead of like struggling to KO the Palkia for the turn, you can like use Water Pawn to get a 2 prize turn when you maybe can't get into your Iron Hands, so, like KO double Duscles and stuff like that. Now, most people probably won't be playing the Water Pawn, but yeah, I'm not too hype on Palkia Dusknoir right now, despite it winning the last major tournament. And I've been a big fan of this deck for a while, but like right now, it still feels pretty mid.
I think if you're playing double vacuum, like I think if you want to play this deck for LAIC, I do think double vacuum seems pretty good in it, right?
Yeah,
I feel like the Bouffalance and Terrapagos could also mess you up a little bit with some math. That's something that could come up. Yeah, I guess you can always just KO a Bouffalante off their bench with Dusknoir, and then like the ability doesn't work anymore, right?
yeah.
So that's something kind of funny, I guess. I'm just kind of I haven't played this matchup super in depth, so I'm just kind of thinking out loud a little bit here.
I'd probably
Um,
still give you the edge in that matchup just because like the Radiant Greninjas, if you go first and get turned to Radiant Greninja, you
sure,
just like devastate their board.
sure.
And then, like if they go Bouffalance over Hoots and Pidgeys, they
Owls.
might just not have enough to work with anyways, or just like a single Dusknoir takes away their draw power for next turn.
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm fine on Palkia Dusknoir. I don't think I would put it in C. I think I'm fine to put it in B tier as far as a play goes for this tournament.
I was leaning towards C. I was leaning towards C.
I mean, I think with the double vac, if you're playing that, um,
I think that's
it
one.
does feel this is a deck that I think does decently against Lugia as well, which is a big selling point for it.
It's pretty close. I mean, going first
Yeah,
is
I
just a
know you
big deal
just
in that
talked through
matchup.
it, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, my biggest thing with Palkia is even with the double back, I feel like you're still coming in unfavored against Raging Bolt. So, like, going that far to, like, tech for a matchup well, like, the single back wasn't, like, specifically for Raging Bolt, but, like, the second back obviously is. Like,
Yes,
if you're
yeah,
teching for a matchup and you're still unfavored, that's where I'm like, "Alright, why are we playing this deck if we're doing that against the most popular deck?" Now, I do bring this up, and I've been talking about this a lot recently is, like, because like, I get, like, asked questions all the time about, like, why results are the way they are, like, what happened, and it's like, the biggest thing I've been trying to, like, kind of key people in on is, like, whatever the best players play is gonna have a big impact on how a tournament goes.
sure,
Not and almost even in terms of what else could do good. Like if all the best players play Lugia, players of like average skill level or below with Iron Thorns could thrive, right? Um, or anyone playing Iron Thorns at that point, right? But that's definitely the Iron Thorns decks are definitely a deck that the top end of players generally do not gravitate towards, right? So something like Raging Bolts, the best players in the game are not going to be showing up with Raging Bolt, right? Like, so that is like something where it's like there is definitely a skill difference between the players who are going to be bringing Palkia Dusknoir versus the average player bringing Raging
you do
Bolt,
say
right?
that,
You'll
but
have
then
an
your
advantage.
testing group did bring
That's true. They did bring Raging Bolt, but that's like, but like if good
the
players do,
Louisville.
if some good players do play Raging Bolt, it's going to be a very low percentage of the percentage, right? So that's like something to factor in with bringing something like Palkia Dusknoir to like go a little bit further into like analyzing how good of a play it could be. Is like, yeah, the average Raging Bolt player is not going to be of like elite caliber. Whereas like the Palkia players, on the other hand, are probably going to be skewed a little bit more towards elite caliber, right? In
Sure.
terms of the average player. So there is that little bit. So yeah, I mean, I think I'd put it in C, but if you're feeling B, we can put it in B because I'm definitely a little bit in between, like 65, 35 towards C is how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I'm down to put it in C. I think that's fine. I do think it'll still be pretty popular though. It's been around 7-8% these last few tournaments. I think 7% is like a fine spot for it to be as far as meta share goes.
Yeah, I've actually been surprised by that. I thought it would drop off pretty drastically after the Raging Bolt Bravery Charm innovation happened. I thought we'd see Dusknoir become like a 3% meta deck eventually, but it has like hung around at that six,
It has been
7%
around, yeah.
pretty solidly. So it'll probably still be about that.
I think it's like a cool deck, and
It is
people
cool.
do like to play. I mean, at first, whenever this deck first kind of came onto the scene, my opinion on it was like, oh, it's like just one of those decks that it's cool, it's good, but it's not the type of deck that'll ever be that popular. And I
Yeah.
was wrong because it became an 8% meta share deck. So like it's definitely got something enough of a draw to it that more people than maybe anticipated have been playing it.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I was with the same way with you, where it's like it kind of feels like a stall, right? Stall is
Yeah.
like rarely gonna ever get to 5%. We'll usually hang out below that. That's how I kind of felt about the Palkia Dusknoir. And yeah, I think definitely play the double vacuum, but there's not too much else to say besides that.
And speaking of stall, we got the Snorlax up next. So Snorlax, I think, has a pretty tough time against Lugia, obviously, and against RegiDrago. Everything else is like kind of pretty fine against, I would say. Um, there is the new innovation from Sander with the boxed order. Is that the truth? Is that the way to play the Snorlax stall? Um, I don't know. I'm not super hot on the Snorlax going into this tournament. As someone, Azul, who has played stall in the past tournaments, what are you feeling about it heading into LAIC?
I think it seems fine. Yeah, your Lugia matchup, I usually just say give up on the Lugia matchup. Some people don't do that though, and they actually do play the tech cards for it. And then you're fine against Raging Bolts. You're fine against Terrapagos. Terrapagos matchup, I'm actually not too sure about how that one actually plays out. I think Terrapagos does have a decent shot, though, because you have ways to get around kind of everything. And you can just play super aggressively through Dusknoir and then, like, even, like, earlier Ionos, like, Iono them down to, like, 4 or something like that, right? You have pivot cards to work with as well. So I think probably depends a little bit on the build, like, towards build with, like, Palpad, Turtle Penny might be tough for Stall to beat, to be honest, because they have the Dusknoirs to get through the Mimikyus and stuff, and Terrapagos obviously gets through the Ogerpon. Yeah, it feels fine. I don't know the best way to play it either. I feel like you're leaning towards C tier, um, and I'm definitely in between B and C, but I feel like I'm a little bit more 50-50 split on B and C tier for Stall, but it feels super fine.
Well, and I think like as far as a play for the tournament goes, if you are someone who is like super experienced with stall, like you can't ever go that wrong with choosing to just stick with it and playing with it for a tournament because people do not, or especially like people who are less experienced against it just do not play properly against the deck. Like you will
Yep.
get wins against decks that you should lose to, or situations that you should lose to because your opponent will be inexperienced. And so, like,
Hearing about like stall players beating Lugias that are unteched, like is criminal.
yeah, but that's like just player diff, right? And it's definitely a
Yeah,
real thing. So I mean, I'm down to put it in B tier for sure.
as like a play over. Yeah, okay then. Yeah, and then what? 4%, 3%.
I was gonna say 3.
Yeah, let's give it 3. All right,
Uh,
let's talk about. Let's say. Oh yeah, as far as plays go, I don't think either of us have a strong opinion on Rotom or no Rotom, right? I just don't
Not enough
know.
games to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know which is the
And by
better
not
way.
enough games, I mean 0 games. You will not catch me queuing up onto TCG Live for fun playing Snorlax. Some people maybe, but not me.
What if they bring it to Pocket? What if they bring Stall to Pocket with it?
Thankfully, with the energy zone, I don't think that's possible, and also the fact that you can't lose by deck out.
They need, you know what they need to do? They need to print a supporter that says if your opponent has 0 cards in deck, you win the game. I'm going to make a prediction.
Ooh.
That is going to be an eventual supporter in Pokemon Pocket. If your opponent has 0 cards in deck, when you play this, you win the game.
We almost made it a whole episode without talking about Pocket. Our last episode is like
Comment
our
section
worst
is
performing
seething right now.
episode in a long time. People are
People
not
hate
our
Pocket.
our listeners are not about the Pocket, dude. We got
It's such a
called
fun
out.
game, though. I don't understand why.
Yeah.
It's like another way to play Pokemon. I don't know. I thought it is interesting to see the competitive community reaction to it. I can understand maybe a little bit of, and I have seen this for sure. Um, it is jealousy. Like we have PDCG live, and then they come out with Pocket, and they don't even like put any respect on like the original card game's name and give it like a respectable client, right? So I can understand that. I have it as well. There's a little bit of like jealousy towards that for sure, or like
Animosity.
yeah, animosity, resentment towards the Pokemon company. Um, yeah, let's talk about Gardevoir next. I think let's first talk about Slow Guardy or Turbo Guardy. I think it's got to be Turbo Guardy, right? If you're going to play a Guardy build, you got to be going fast.
Gotta be the Turbo Guardy for sure.
And honestly, watching the show match play out, for anyone who doesn't know, I did host a show match between Isaiah Bradner, Andrew Hedrick, Michael Davidson playing RegiDrago versus Joshua Frank, Abon Ahmed, and Henry Chow playing Gardevoir, Turbo Guardy, best of 7, 3v3. And Guardy came out on top 4 versus 1. And I wouldn't say that is like indicative of how the matchup goes every time, but just watching the plays that was possible on the Gardevoir side definitely gave me some more hope in the Gardevoir deck overall. Um, it is tough for me to rate it super highly though. I'm between C and B. I don't think it's a D tier deck, but I'm leaning like 60-40 C, I feel like overall. Because I'm still
More
not
towards
overly
C.
impressed. Yeah, more towards I'm not overly impressed by Gardevoir still as a deck, despite it maybe having like a 50-50 Drago matchup.
Yeah, I don't know how the Turbo Gardevoir does versus Lugia, but like I think back to NAIC where we played Gardevoir into a heavy Lugia format, and we played an enhanced hammer.
And it felt pretty comfortable with an E-Hammer.
Yeah, but it feels like it would have been impossible without an E-hammer. And these Gardevoirs are not playing any techs. Like
Yeah, but they are attacking a turn sooner
they
on
are, yeah.
average, right? So I think you're probably still favored. It would be my assumption because if you just go first and get a turn to attack into them, sometimes Lugia needs an extra turn, then they just lose. Or if you go second and you just turn to Screamtail or Chops as a response to their first attack, as long as it's not Iron Hands they're attacking with, you're probably in a fine spot even in that situation as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Then against like Terapagos, if you can turn 1 KO there or turn 2 KO their Pidgey, that would probably be pretty good, right?
Yeah, the Tropicals matchup, I have my information on that one is like 0. Dusknoir's plus Briar seems tough to keep up with, though.
You've got to be fine into Raging Bolt, right?
Definitely love the Raging Ball matchup. Drago matchup seems fine. Palkia Dusknoir's tough. That's a tough one right there. But the Turbo build definitely handles it better than the slow build. So
I would maybe lean towards B, especially if we're gonna give it still like feeling fine against the Lugia matchup.
yeah, we're saying it's positive against Lugia and then 50-50 Drago. Those are like as because we have like a lot of the big decks on the board right here. What are the 2 decks that you give the most importance to being able to beat? Or maybe top 3? Like,
Oh,
what are the
like if
3 decks?
yeah, yeah, yeah. The
What
decks
are
I
gonna be
want.
the 3 yeah, what are, like, the 3 decks that you think are probably gonna be the most successful in terms of you have
Yeah.
to probably beat these to win the tournament?
Terapagos, RegiDrago, Lugia.
Those are the ones you give it to? Yeah. I would
Yeah.
say Raging Ball, maybe would put over Terapagos. But I'm up there with you with those. Lugia and Drago are like my top two because yeah, Lugia is like the most powerful deck, and then Drago is the deck that the most best players are going to play probably. And Terapagos is up there as well with one of those decks where like the quality of player, the skill level of player that chooses to play Terapagos Dusknoir is pretty high on average. So it's a good shout to the Terapagos as well. Yeah, I think I'd almost agree with you on those three then. Um, which means Gardevoir I think is probably coming up short against Terapagos would be my guess, but I'm actually just not 100% sure on that.
Sure.
Because like, Briar plus Dusknoir sounds like a lot to deal with. So
Sure.
so I'm okay with B then. I'm okay with B if we're rating it those matchups spread against Lugia and Drago. And then what?
And yeah, what was it at Gdansk?
Good question.
I'll look real quick. In Gdansk, it was 6% day one. I could see it being, yeah, probably just 6, 5 or 6.
I give it 5, yeah.
5. We'll do that. Next up, I guess sticking with the Gardevoir theme, we could go with Banette Gardevoir, a deck that is quite different from regular Gardevoir, but it's coming off of 2 top 8 finishes, one of those being a top 4 at Gdansk. Deck obviously performed very, very strongly, and I think is a deck that still has a lot of potential and still is pretty strong in this format.
Yeah, it's got like biggest drawing point. It's got a really good Raging Bolt matchup. It's like the big.
And again, similarly to Snorlax, item lock decks and stuff like this are decks that you will, if you play this deck for LAIC, your opponents will misplay for it versus you.
Oh
And
yeah,
that is a huge buff going into a tournament.
and we saw that a lot on stream at Gdansk when the Banettes made their way to stream. Except Tord. Tord didn't misplay against it, I don't think at all. So,
Yeah.
but that's to be expected. Yeah, and the one matchup, it's tough though. The Lugia matchup is bad. If the Lugia player plays well, you're in a bad spot. I think Drago is also unfavorable.
Sure.
Of course, like you said, you're gonna have a good advantage against the average player. Against with both those decks, you'll be fine. Lugia will maybe be closer to like a 50-50 still. But if we're talking about winning the tournament, how good of a play is it to win the tournament? I don't think I rate it that high. I think it is like a C tier deck. Like I'm pretty
Yeah.
confident in C tier for this one. I don't think I rate it to win the tournament that highly.
Yeah, I think I could definitely put it in C tier. Oh, one thing I will say when it comes to the meta share graphic and percentage, they do just naturally lump Gardevoir
Mm,
and Banette into the same category. So like true Guardy is probably less than 5%. And
might even be like
Banette,
3-3, right?
it's
Or
probably
4-2.
yeah, maybe 4. I was gonna say 4-1 probably. Like I just
Yeah,
don't think this
go
deck
with
is
that.
ever gonna be that popular, but that we'll
Agree.
probably still see someone like do decently with it. It'll have a top 32
Mateus.
finish at least. Yeah, Mateus if he's going right. Um yeah, I
Yeah.
think I feel pretty good about this and then the 1%.
All right. All right. Got another. This kind of fits the category of where we went. We were just talking about stall, then we did Midnight Guardboard. Iron Thorns, kind
Yep.
of like a weird deck that has like a weird matchup spread depending on what you play up against. Um, and I've actually rated Thorns pretty highly, pretty consistently throughout this meta. I think I underrated a little bit because I was getting discouraged. I was being too results oriented and like looking at the results from tournament after tournament after tournament, and Thorns was not doing well. I was like, I didn't rate it that highly going to Gdansk, whereas before Gdansk, I had rated pretty highly. And then at Gdansk, there was 2 in top 8. And I was like, okay, this is probably just like showing me that I have to be less results oriented and kind of stay true to my convictions until like there's something that truly pushes me one way or the other. And I don't think anything has really changed to make me not say that Thorns seems like a fine play. Good Lugia, really good Lugia matchup. Favorite into Drago, not by a lot, but your favorite, I would say. Terapagos matchup is still a matchup I have not figured out, so I don't actually know how you do up against Terapagos, to be honest. I'm not sure. I think if they play Vitality Band would be a big thing, but I don't think anyone's playing Vitality Band right now. And then your Raging Bolt matchup is fine. Definitely unfavored, but like the Drago matchup, how your favorite, it's not like unfavored by a whole ton. You can kind of just cheese them by taking away their abilities, right? So I'm thinking definitely B or C, but I am leaning a little bit more towards B for the Iron Thorns.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't have that strong of an opinion on this deck, to be honest, or that much of an opinion on what cards should be in it. So I'm just going to defer to you on this. If you think it should be B, I'm down to put it in there.
And I have no idea what you should play in here either. I wouldn't play Canceling Clones. Don't. Who cares about Mimikyu, bro? Nobody cares about Turbo. Guardy doesn't play Mimikyu. If you hit a stall, let him have the win. Give me those. I mean, there's still reasons to play Lost City or a stadium counter in general. So you should definitely play a counter stadium. So like 2 Lost Cities is fine, or more vacuums. Honestly, the vacuums are really good.
Yeah, but if
because it
you're
allows
playing
you to.
like Colress is so good in this deck generally.
You should play
Uh,
some stadium.
yeah, but I wonder what the best stadium
It's still.
is
I think it
actually.
is still Lost City. Just don't play canceling clones. There's no need to tech for. Don't tech for the Mimikyu. Like it's just such a waste of space. Overall, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, Lost Zoning some like Duskulls seems pretty good against like most of these decks that can get them back, right?
Yeah, stuff like that. So Lost Cities are still probably the way to go. Just don't play the canceling colognes. And then I think Prime Catcher, like I'm not sure about Pokemon Catcher or no Pokemon Catcher, but Prime Catcher, I think you definitely still go with that as your ace spec. And then probably 4%. It's still been
Yeah, it's
like
still been yeah,
decently popular. I don't see a reason for it to kind of drop off super hard.
down with the 4%. And then I guess let's just go ahead and get it out of the way. The last of the like toxic quote unquote decks. We got Pidgeot Control. This one is one that has not done super well
We've even seen
recently. Yeah, have we seen it? Why is it in here? Should we even rate it?
we maybe just should. Alessandro most recently played a wall deck, and Sander most recently played
Didn't even play
stall.
Pidgeot?
So no, Alessandro most recently played the quad Mimikyu
Yeah, but yeah, it didn't even
thing.
play. Yeah,
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 it
it
doesn't have
didn't.
no Pidgeot, no Pidgeot, yeah. So I don't have too much to go off of. Like those are like two players that we can usually look at and be like, okay, if they're playing it, they're probably doing well with it. But they're not even playing it, and they're still doing fine with other decks. But it's like, yeah, I feel like it's hard to rate it for us because I feel like that's what I lean on usually a lot with control, and we can't go off like someone like All Out Blitzel constantly doing well in online tournaments and hyping it up because that's all Out Blitzel does and plays and and does well with it no matter what. So,
Yeah.
so it's hard
He's
to
like
rate control.
hard forcing control.
Yeah. So I
There
think it's we can't really rate it too much, but it seems like it would probably want to be worse than. I honestly wouldn't put it worse than C though. I don't think it would be D tier.
there are 2 in top 32 at Louisville, so like it had some results, but I mean, looking outside of that, I mean, there was a top 32 at Lille and then 2 top 64s in Gdansk. I
Yeah,
mean, I
pretty mid. You
I
want to
mean,
put D?
I would be down to put it in D.
All right, lock it in. Can you put 0.5%? Can we do?
Yeah.
Oh, we can. Perfect.
Yeah, there we go. We'll do 0.5%. And this will be good too for engagement when we post a tweet that has a screenshot of this because we'll have all the control heads complaining in the comments on Twitter. It'll
Baited.
boost the engagement. Let's get it.
All right, that's our. That's good. That's good.
Let's go
All
with
right.
probably what the best of these remaining 5 decks is, and that is the Lost Zone box.
Yep.
I do still think this deck is pretty good. It's definitely just a like dodge RegiDrago deck, and then you feel pretty fine against literally everything else in the meta. You feel fine against.
Yeah, I think.
Charizard is probably maybe still hard,
Mhm.
but that would be about it.
I think I agree, and I think with that in mind, and I think like immediately after Louisville, Lost Box was not great. The mana fees were back to some extent, but I think that's probably gone out of most people's minds and decks. Like no one's really has mana fee in their deck anymore, right?
Yeah,
So I think I just put in B tier. I think it seems
yeah.
fine. And
I
then like copy the Davidson 60 or go take a look at what Tord played at Lil. Maybe like Tord played the Iron Thorns and also had like a different kind of like stretcher and stuff like that. But um, something like that for sure.
yeah. So
3%. What was it like a Dansk?
it was not ranked at Gdansk, even in the
There was
best
there
format.
was there was also 2 in top 16 at Gdansk. Go ahead and
Yeah,
shout that
but
out.
it did. There were 6 of them in day 2 at Gdansk. I would say 2%.
2%. Let's give it 2.
2% meta share.
1.5.
Dragapult Dusknoir. This is a deck that's fallen pretty hard. Obviously performed super well at the very beginning of this format, winning Lil regionals, right?
Yep.
Um, but
Then
since
getting
then,
second at James
yeah, yeah,
at
they,
or that was Lil Dortmund at one Dortmund.
yes, second at Lil.
Honestly, Dragapult is just kind of cooking Europe a little bit. What's going on with that? The Dragon Pokemon in general, Drago coming through.
Just whatever goes over in Europe, to be honest. They got Iron Thorns and Banette
Banette Guardian.
cutting their tournaments,
Dude, what is going on
Dragapult's
over there?
winning. I'm not super hot
Unserious
on
region, unserious region.
I'm not super
Uh,
hot on Dragapult right
I was gonna
now.
say, yeah, I think it's D tier. I think the deck is just it's not great. Got the Bravery Charms and the Raging Bolts. Your Drago matchup is tough. The Lugia matchup is tough. It's I think it's not that great right now.
It is still uh not incredibly popular, but it's definitely gone down.
I think it'll probably be around 5 would be my guess. It definitely isn't going up from Gdansk where it was 7. I feel like it's gotta be going lower. Gotta be on the
This will
way
be
out.
the biggest major though in LA since like what was their last regionals? They had special event in Lima. Their last regionals was Joinville. Was that even this format? No, it was this format. Yeah, because that's where Terrapagos popped up. So I guess they have had a tournament in Brazil that was
Format.
this format, like a big time one.
Yeah.
Um, but man, yeah, it didn't do well over there.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we're gonna. I mean, this grouping in Dragapult, Pidgeot as well.
Yeah, I just put them both in there, and I do lean more towards actually, I'm not sure where I stand on that right now. I think I lean more towards the Pidgeot build still, but yeah, overall, I think
Now we didn't talk about the Korean League tournament that happened a couple of weeks ago. Uh, But Dragapult Dusknoir did have 2 top 8 finishes there, including the win at that tournament.
yeah, and pretty similar to the Ryuki build, if not the exact 60, not quite, but it's close. Yeah, I don't know, that's not enough to like, these tournaments, I definitely rate less high. They play best of 1,
Yeah,
like, best of 1 cheese, applied, so, yeah, I don't rate their results as highly
I'm
just
down
based
with
on that factor.
5% meta share. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think it'll, like, completely disappear or anything like that, although sometimes decks do just completely disappear, but it's tough for them to completely get out of here.
All right, next we got the 3 Stooges. We got Golden Go, Miraidon, and Gouging Fire.
Alright, so let's start. I'll ask you the question. Which one of these? This one we'll start with. Which one do you like the most out of these 3?
I think Gouging Fire is the one I
Oh,
like the
really?
most. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's start with that. I feel like a lot of the
Which one do
gouging
you like the most?
Golden Go
Yeah, the Gouging Fire is cool. Obviously, Luke Kirkham's been kind of the pilot at the
Pioneer.
front of this over in Europe, top 16 into top 32. Um,
Leading the charge, I think, for the hype behind the deck for sure.
but yeah, I mean, I just think this deck seems solid. I think Magma Basin is like possibly the strongest stadium card that Pokemon has
Yeah.
ever printed. The problem is there's no really good fire Pokemon except Gouge. It's kind of crazy to say that a basic Pokemon that does 260 damage is not a good Pokemon, quote unquote. But
It's crazy to think about it. It's a pretty good stadium card.
I genuinely, in a vacuum, I think it is the best stadium Pokemon has printed. But the fire Pokemon, like it can, but the problem is it can only ever be as good as the fire Pokemon are
Yep.
that exist around it.
Man, it's really about to rotate too. That's
Yeah.
kinda a little sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too hype on Gouging Fire. I think it is solid. So with a lot of these decks, there's not too much data to go off of. I have played with all of them. So just going off of my feels of the deck, I do rate Gouging Fire higher than Dragapult. I think I'd put it in C tier though, still.
Let's get it. Gouging Fire for C tier.
1%. 0.5.
1%. Yeah, 0.5. Yeah, I'm down.
Actually, I don't know. Is the hype there? Has Luke generated enough hype?
Nah, 0.5.
Okay. So let's go with my favorite of the 3, which was Golden Go. Which once again is running off of feels, which I guess you could call vibes if you want, but my intuition is definitely better than the average players, I would say. I definitely like it more than Gouging Fire. So I would put it in B. We're definitely in between B and C. And I'm like about 50-50 split on that. But I would rather play is that true? Would I rather play Golden Go than ooh, I don't know if that's true though. Maybe it is just a C tier deck. Because when I look at some of these C tier decks, it's like they probably should be here. But I think I'd rather play Palkia Dusknoir and Banette Gardevoir over Golden Go still. So maybe it is another C tier here for the Golden Go.
I probably would play Golden Go before I played those decks, but that's just me personally.
Would you do it because you'd rather play Golden Go, or you think that's a better play?
It's probably a better. I mean, I am thinking in the lens of uh a little bit in the lens of like ease of play
Yeah.
heading into a tournament like this with the amount of games I've had, but I don't know. Yeah, Golden Go definitely passes the vibe check, right? Like
Yeah. I mean, and like and also the results for the play rate are like pretty good for Golden Go. Like overall, even though Yella did not make day 2 at Gdansk, there were still 2 in top 32. And I don't know,
we'll
it was a 1% meta deck, right? Less.
we'll put it in the C tier. It's probably where it should be, and we'll give it the
Yeah.
1%.
I think it's a 0.5. I think it gets point. We should probably give it
Ooh,
0.5.
dang, bro.
Then should
And
Gouging Fire have 0.4? Should it be?
okay, sure.
I
I'd
think
be
Golden
down
Go
with
has,
that now. 0.4.
Golden Go has a little bit more. What is the term that the kids use?
Riz.
No, not Riz. It's not not Riz. It has more motion. Motion. That's the one I'm thinking of. I
Is
think.
that a thing now?
I think that's what that's how it gets applied. Yeah, it
Oh
has more
man.
motion. Motion means like pull, like
Sure.
out, or like yeah. I think Golden Go has more motion than Gouging Fire.
All right.
That's
Well,
the
how
yellow.
much motion does Miraidon have?
Not very much, but how good is it? Uh, let's just
I
let's
think
break
there
this down.
is potential with
Your
Miraidon.
favorite against Lugia. Your RegiDrago matchup I think is unfavorable, but it's not terrible.
Your
Terapagos
Raging
seems
Bolt matchup
kind of
is definitely
tough.
just terrible.
All right, it's definitely C tier. The question is it D tier? I actually think it might be D tier.
Yeah, I don't even really know why we're ranking this one. It did get top
It
8
got
at
top 8,
the
yeah.
yeah,
You the one who wanted to put this in
that's
here,
true,
which
that's
I think is
true.
a fair reason. It did just get top 8.
And it is probably going to be more popular than Golden Go and Gouging Fire, like
Yeah. I mean,
2%.
it
It
was
was
on.
2% in Gdansk, I think.
Yeah, we could probably give it. I give it 1 though.
Nah, 2.
All right, locked in. And then yeah, I guess there's not too much. Is it 2%? I mean, there's no real. Would you play Area Zero? I would. It's definitely the
Yeah,
cooler way to play the deck.
definitely, yeah.
I am curious what the list at Buenos Aires looked like. I'm sure we'll get that information before LAIC happens, but we don't have that information right now, obviously. So yeah, broken tier list. Lock it in.
Let's get it. Feel pretty good about that. Feel pretty good about the percentages. Top 6 decks of Raging Bolt, Lugia, Drago, Palkia, Terapagos, and Charizard.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I feel like Terapagos should probably be 8 and Palkia should probably be 6.
Okay,
I
sure.
feel like Terapagos will probably be more popular, so there has to be some adjustment there. I don't know. That makes the most sense to me. And I could see Lugia being quite a bit more popular, to be honest. Like, well, we shouldn't change it, but I could see Lugia being like 13 and Raging Ball being like 14 or something.
Sure.
But yeah, I like this.
All right, let's get the screenshots for the Twitter tomorrow. Boom, boom, or later this week, maybe.
You know, if you scroll down, there's a download image button.
Well, I've already screenshotted it. Where's the download image button?
Wait, where is it? Oh, right
You're
there, top
alive.
right, actually. Top right.
If you scroll down, he says.
I was thinking about the tier list, like the tier list maker site. Scroll down for that.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, we've done the tier list. Tournament's coming up. We got some predictions to do.
We do.
First prediction, we got how many Dusknoir do you think there will be in Top Cut?
Yeah, so we're meaning just like copies of the card,
Yep.
not how many decks will play it. And also top cut, not just top 8. And it's kind of interesting, you got Tord out here with 1 Dusknoir. I don't think that's going to stick. I think most people are going to still be playing 2, most likely in their various Dusknoir builds. I mean,
What did Tim play?
A couple Terapagos, 1, 2, 3, 4. What other deck? A Charizard sneaks in, maybe.
No way.
I'm gonna say 4. 4 Dusknoir, and it's from 2 Terapagos, and that's it.
I'm actually curious. How many Dusknoir did Tim play? This is gonna decide my answer.
Let's see. Oh, I've got it. Tweet linked right here. He played 2.
Okay, so I'm gonna say there's gonna be 2. I think there'll be 1 Dusknoir deck in cut. It'll
And
probably be a
Tim?
Terapagos. Well, I don't know if it's gonna be Tim. It'll be a Terapagos. I was
Okay,
like, where are people leaning? Is everyone going down to 1? Because if it was everyone going down to 1, I would have said 1. Because like you said, that's where Tord is at. Yeah.
All right, next up, what region will the winner be from? LATAM, NA, EU, Australia, or Asia, Japan? We should just group Asia all together.
Yeah, we should just say Aces altogether.
Or like non-TPCI rating zone.
Yeah. I'm going with I've been hyping up a lot.
Or Middle East, South Africa.
I'm going with I've been hyping them up a lot recently. They've been performing pretty well, although they kind of choked in Gdansk. But I'm going with Australia. I'm going with Australia on this one, or
okay.
Oceania region, I guess, which is basically just wait. What else do they have in the ocean? That's it, right? That's all they have in there, and now New Zealand. Yeah, so Australia. Is there any players from New Zealand who play Pokemon? They exist?
Drake the junior or senior.
True.
Yeah.
Not a master yet, though. Yeah, I'm
Not
going
a
with
master.
Oceania. What are you locking in?
I'm gonna lock in the Latam, and it's mostly because I just want there to be a Brazilian player in the finals because the finals is so much more hype. The environment at LAIC is just so much more exciting when there is a junior or senior, or not a junior senior, a Latin America player in the finals. And the reason I say that is because last year at LAIC seniors finals, I think it was, had it was a Peruvian player versus a Brazilian player, and they had people chanting back and forth, the Peru people on one side, Brazil, and they're like just super hyped, super excited. It was the seniors finals, and then the match finished and everyone left before Masters finals because it was two white guys up there.
Yeah.
uh so I definitely am rooting for a LATAM player, hopefully Brazilian, in the finals because I just know it'll be so hype in the room if that happens.
Yeah, there definitely will be more hype in the room for sure. But they will be losing to Iwan, James, Brent, or
Natalie,
Natalie. I'm not sure if Natalie's going. Also, Tim. I could see Tim pulling
let's
through.
get it.
I'm not sure about the RegiDrago in there. That might have to get cut if Tim's plans to make the finals, but maybe it is broken, and that'll be the key. Who knows?
All right, last up, highest placing C or D tier deck. So we put 8 decks in C and D tier: Charizard, Palkia, Banette, Gardevoir, Gouging Fire, Golden Go, Pidgeot Control, Dragapult, Dusknoir, and Miraidon. So which one of these 8 decks will be the highest placing?
So I think I would snap say Banette Gardevoir, but I don't know if like this is not a European tournament, so I don't know like if Magnus and Mateus and the rest of the Mateus crew are going to be there. The rest of the players from Poland are gonna be there or not. So I guess it's hard to say Banette Gardevoir. That's what I want to say because I like that deck the most out of those decks. So I'm gonna go with Palkia Dusknoir, I think, then instead. I just have no faith in Charizard right now. Otherwise,
Yeah,
Charizard's a pretty easy pick, I think, usually.
yeah, I'm not picking Charizard as well either. I like Charizard has just not even done well at these last few tournaments, except for Louisville. That's like the outlier, really. Um, yeah, looking at the rest of these decks, I mean, Palkia seems like the easiest choice for sure. I'm gonna say Banette, and I don't know if anyone from the Polish group or if Magnus or any of the people who are really committed to it are going. I don't know if Piper's going. She also played it to a decent finish at
Yeah.
Louisville. I think lost 2 win-ins or something like that in a row, which was pretty tough, but it happens. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Banette. I'll give it the Banette. Someone's gonna make it into cut with that deck.
Yeah, that's still reasonable for sure. I mean, I would like to see it go far for sure, but unknowing about the players who are going to the tournament, it's a tough call to make.
Banette's a tough one because I think it's so uninteresting to watch on stream
Yeah,
because
it actually, yeah, it is.
one person just does so much and then the other person just does so little. Like we had
The
Piper
games take so
on.
many turns.
Yeah, we had Piper on versus a Terapagos. I think it was Austin Ellis, I want to say.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, like it was just so uninteresting to watch. Like Piper does a million things on her turn and Austin goes draw pass.
It really is the dude. Honestly, I feel like I don't know which tournament it was recently. One of the tournaments I restreamed recently, the match decisions were pretty questionable in terms of like putting on like stall decks or something like that. Maybe it was Baltimore to be honest. But yeah, that was yeah, like the Gardevoir needs to basically, or not Gardevoir, Banette Gardevoir needs to be like banned from going on stream. Same with stall. It's just like not fun to watch. Like a trade up is just like I'm sure there's some people out there who are probably fine with it, but like it's just, and I don't think I'm speaking from like any kind of
I
like
think it's
bias
like
here.
fine when it's like a new deck in the format, right? And like you get to see it
Yeah.
in action for like one of the early tournaments. But now that we're a few tournaments into this format,
Even if it's like early on in this form, the deck's been played out. Like if Stall was a new archetype from Surging Sparks going to Sacramento, sure. But yeah, I think honestly, Banette Gardevoir, Stall, they need to be banned until top cut. Or like a really intense win in between like two top level players or something. Because it's just not, it is not fun to watch. It's super boring. Like it's already hard enough to entertain people watching the Pokemon TCG, even if people know how to play the game. Like
yeah.
there needs to be like some more stuff involved in like the production side of things to try and keep things as entertaining as possible. And I don't care who's playing the decks, but like those decks just need to be banned. Like the only excuse I could see is like if you're trying to have on last year's LAIC winner round 1 and they're playing against stall or they're playing stall, okay, maybe there's like an exception there. But if not, these kind of decks just need to be banned from being on stream if there's like
Yeah.
anything even remotely comparable as far as caliber of match.
All right. Well, those are our predictions. That's our tier list. Azul, you got anything else you want to say to the people before we get out of here to the bonus episode?
No, yeah, I don't think so. I'm ready to head to it. So send us out, Chip.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. As always, best of luck to anyone traveling down to LAIC. Hope you enjoyed listening. If you are listening on your travels down there, and if you did enjoy, be sure to leave us a like, a rating, a review, subscribe here on the YouTube channel. It's the easiest way to support us. And if you want to stay up to date with what's going on with us, you can follow us over on Twitter, myself at Chip Ritchie, Azul at Azul_GG. And you can also follow the podcast at Uncommon_Energy.
Yep. Appreciate the support as always. Catch y'all next week. Wednesday, back to the normal schedule.
Yep.
7 a.m. Eastern. Catch y'all then.